What is it you want, Barry? What do you want? You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Come with me if you want to live.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
The Force will be with you, always.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 20th Century Geek. I'm your regular host, Scott Weatherly, and today I am joined by a number of people. You could say that it's a hive of villain scum on here. So, let's start with who have I got? I've got Dave Horrocks, Chris Phelps, and Mike Burton. These are friends from other podcasts, and I'm going to drop them straight in the deep end to give some plugs. So let's start with you, Dave. Where are you from? Tell us about yourself and where you're from.
It feels like a game show. So.
That's what I'm aiming for, eventually.
Thanks for having me on.
It's
great to be on. So I'm across from the Comics in Motion and the VHS Strikes Back as well. So we do podcasts. I'll focus on the Comics in Motion one first, and I'll let Chris talk about the VHS Strikes Back. So what we do there is we like to focus on movies and TV shows. We used to say games, but we didn't have time to do those. So we just focus on those kind of properties that are based on comics, and then sometimes loosely we'll just talk about that, and then I'll talk a little bit about the comics background, and how that maybe differs from the movie or the TV show, and then I'll get Chris to talk about the movie and TV show as well.
Excellent, thanks, Dave. And Chris, then you're going to tell us about VHS Strikes Back.
Yeah, well, the VHS Strikes Back is probably one of my favourite podcasts out mine and Dave's back catalogue, because I get to throw Dave under the bus with making him watch some absolutely terrible and awful movies. So if you want to, get into that, and it's basically from about 2005 backwards, and we have a back catalogue of some absolute classic movies, but we also have some absolutely god-awful shit movies. And just for reference, we have recently reviewed the 1989 No Holds Barred starring Hulk Hogan. And when I say starred, I mean he just turned up. So if you are into that sort of stuff, get over there, guys.
I've got to say, that was a doozy of a show, guys. Like, it was one of those I had to pause. I was listening to in the office, and I had to pause so I didn't laugh out loud, really. Sort of, yeah. Chris, it's great to see you getting your own back. For some of the things you appear to have suffered through, but I have to agree. To be fair, some of the things you feel you've suffered through, we're not going to get onto the whole Ghostbusters and Indiana Jones things right now. But it's clearly a sticking point. But yeah, no, thank you guys for coming on.
And we'll get to Mike, sorry to jump in, but Chris thinks he's suffered because I've introduced him to classics like Weird Science, Howard the Duck. He'd never seen these things before, and so I blessed him. Tank Girl as well. I gave him the gift of these classics.
One Girl, you mean? Yeah.
And well, that would be a different movie.
I'm sure it's out there.
But Chris is inflicting these no holds barred type movies, this No Retreat, No Surrender 2, and they are genuinely awful movies. So, but clearly you can see by this little bit, I guess, that we don't often see things exactly the same way.
Yeah, it's a treat, you guys. I really enjoy it. Mike as well, though, but Mike Burton is on the line from Genuine Chit Chat. So, Mike, who are you and where do you come from? Tell us about yourself.
Where do I come from? A loaded question. No. Basically, I'm a solo host, much like yourself for the most part, Scott. But my show, I have a different guest on every week, or every episode, really. I've actually had Chris and Dave on the show on episode 63. And Chris briefly touched upon sort of having loads of podcasts that Chris and Dave have basically done in the past. Some are alive, some are kind of, dead in the ashes. We actually speak about that, and the episode's named The Mysterious Podcast Graveyard, because we spend about 40 minutes, I think, just talking about all the podcast like events they've gone through. And I didn't even realise, when I had them on my show, I was like, oh yeah, it's the guys from Comics in Motion. It was just when VHS Strikes Back was getting launched, and we just got to talk about movies and a few things here and there and everywhere. And they used to be in a band as well, and you kind of get to know about that sort of stuff. And then I didn't really plan about the podcast stuff that much. I knew they had one or two, and then you go through it, and it's like, oh yeah, we got this one. Oh no, this one. Oh, you know that sport one you did, Chris? Which sport one? That sport one or the other sport one? Oh no, that sport one. Oh, what about the one I did for like 10 minutes? Oh, what the one you did? I'm like, here, like, what is happening? Like, it's really good listening, but it's just like, what? So that's kind of like, I was a taster of what the sort of nonsense has in my show. I've had different podcasters on. I've had people who are suffering of mental illness and other illnesses and ailments. I've had a blind filmmaker on. I've had a guy from the Church of Satan on. I've had like people from all across the world talking about all kinds of different things. So if you're the kind of person who likes a bit more of a wide berth, I kind of say almost like a more low-key, down-to-earth version of Joe Rogan with episodes that aren't like, 3 to 4 hours long. That's what I like to pitch myself as, the biggest podcaster in the entire world, probably. But yeah, that's basically just my show. I don't think everyone's going to like everything on my show, but the back catalogue is so varied and wide. I'm sure there's something people enjoy. So yeah, thanks for having me.
There genuinely is. I've tried out quite a few episodes now, and I really enjoy just the diversity, but also, like I say, to some of the tangents that people go on is really interesting. So yeah, it's good. I recommend it. It's really good listening, actually. And you're right. There will be something for some. Everyone will find something on the podcast they will enjoy. Definitely.
Can I, while we're having a bit of love-in, I mean, I'm a massive fan of both the Genuine Chit Chat and 20th Century Geek, and I keep going back, and I know Mike hasn't mentioned it, but when he gets the guy from the Church of Satan, that's a particular highlight for me. But I think, Scott, one of my favourite recent episodes of yours is when you were going through the more recent Terminator movies, and you were trying to put together a plot synopsis. And you basically said, I was trying to put together a plot synopsis, and I got to the point, and I was like, fuck this plot and fuck this film.
Yeah, Terminator Genesis.
And I'm sure a lot of the fans of the franchise would agree with you there.
Yeah, it's interesting because we literally just the other night, Brian and I recorded our review of Dark Fate, and we had some really quite varying opinions on that film. But we both had sort of quite a lot of agreement about the fact that, like, Genesis, it has moments, but generally, yeah, fuck that film. I can't get any love for it at all. No, Genesis. Really? Dark Fate, different. I'm not going to give it. Yeah. We basically end up doing a bit of a script doctor on it, and by the end of it, we think we came to a better film. I like Dark Fate. I enjoyed it, but I think we got to a better film. Unfortunately, Chris, Dave, the better film that we came to didn't have Arnie in it.
Salvation.
Salvation.
I will clarify. I haven't seen Dark Fate yet. I want to clarify. I haven't seen Genesis either, but I haven't seen Dark Fate either. Okay. I was going to say, like, I saw Dark Fate and I was like, I didn't really watch Genesis, and I don't think it's probably going to be very good. Like, I've got kind of mixed. The Terminator franchise is like one obviously has Terminator 2, which is, one of the best films probably ever made, and then you've got Terminator 3, which is probably one of the worst films I've ever seen. So it's like, not very good there, is it? But I do want to quickly say, we're giving each other love. Sorry, Scott. I want to give you love, which is I'm going to listen to more of your back catalogue as I sort of go on. But I must say, I've only actually listened to one episode of 20th Century Geek, so I do apologise for that. But number 87, where it was Religions and Iconography, I think I briefly mentioned in our preamble before the last episode of this amazing collaboration thing we're doing. But I just think that episode, if any fans of the show haven't actually checked it out, with Peter Laws, it is absolutely amazing. So I'm going to be listening to a lot more of your sort of back catalogue, and I just want to say I really, really like your show, and I'm going to be listening to
greatly appreciate that. And I will say right here and now, I will be sending you Peter Laws' contact details so you can have on the show, because he is a great guest to have on. So
I look forward to it. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
You're going to give us some love as well.
Can I just say a bit of a confession? well, I try and keep it real. I'll be honest with both of you. I've got you in my back catalogue of podcasts, but I've not listened to fuck all of your podcasts, and I've been completely honest because I've just not had enough time.
So your own podcast. You're trying to catch up on your own podcast.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to give you both love because I both think you're absolutely top blokes, and I'm not just saying it because we do this. I think you're both really funny, really nice people. So I need to dedicate and get my arse engaged. Instead of fantasising about a Burt Reynolds moustache and a Trans Am, I need to get myself sorted out and start listening. So I do apologise, guys.
Completely out of context, so that's going to sound amazing to the listeners.
I was going to say, only we know what he's on about then. I was like, pretty certain he didn't press record. We had this whole Burt Reynolds conversation. Chris confessed his undying love for Burt Reynolds. Is that all right?
That's the mystique of me being on the show.
That's what you bring to it.
So I'd like to demystify it a little bit, if I could, and just explicitly call out. So, Chris, you own a copy, I think, of Playgirl, don't you, with Burt Reynolds in?
I saw we're recording, Scott. I don't
The man question. That's your question. It was a simple yes, no answer.
This is a spin-off episode in itself. So
It's just my love for that mustachio man. That's all I'm going to say from here
there's
on in.
nothing wrong with a bit of man love. That's
No.
all right. It's perfectly okay thing.
He's a living he's a living legend. That's a terrible bit of time. He's not a living legend anymore. He's just a legend, sorry. So good old Bert, he's up there in the movie making clouds in the sky.
He is a legend.
One of my all-time heroes.
I do like the old 70s, early 80s Burt Reynolds films are cracking. But we're not here to talk about Burt Reynolds' moustache or his trans. We are together. We have brought a fantastic collaboration together, and this is part 2, to be perfectly honest, isn't it? So if you want to catch part 1, go back and listen to, I think you're going to put it on both streams, aren't you? Comics in Motion and VHS Strikes Back.
Yep.
We got into great detail about Star Wars A New Hope, and we all had certain things to say about that film. But if you want to hear real details about what we said about the film, go back and check that out. But this collaboration is going to be ploughing on forwards. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the rest of the OG Star Wars trilogy. On the next episode, we'll be back and we're going to be talking about the prequel trilogy. And then part 4, we're going to be joining Mike on Genuine Chit Chat, and we are going to be speculating and ruminating on what is going to be coming with Rise of Skywalker and beyond. So let's get cracking on this then. Guys, we are going to be talking about the OG trilogy, and I think we'll just work through, first off, person by person, is more than just a bit, New Hope, the whole first trilogy. What are your thoughts? Where does it sit with you? And Dave, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on the OG trilogy?
We'll come on to the special edition, which came out in '97, maybe a little bit later. But what it means to me, I mentioned on the last episode, the original Star Wars, the one that debuted in 1977. And I replayed it to death on the video, first Betamax, then VHS, over and over and over. So if there was one movie from my childhood, it was the original Star Wars. Now, Return of the Jedi was the very first movie I'd watched at the cinema as well. And I know I'm the veteran of this group, so we all sort of see it from slightly different lenses, but I just remember being stood in a huge line, and it was, an early kind of, I guess, if I think of the 1989 Batman, that's another example where just everyone was talking about this movie beforehand. And so, as much as the Return of the Jedi gets beaten up, I think because of that whole experience, every time I watch that movie, I just get washed away with nostalgia, and I can't see it totally objectively. So probably like that a bit more. Now, it took me quite a few years after that before I watched Empire Strikes Back, and so I had a huge gap in that story. Now, the way you get the whole Star Wars crawl coming up, it takes leaps even in between in the movies, doesn't it? So I didn't feel like I was missing out too much, but I don't know if there was any problems with the distribution or whatever with Empire Strikes Back, but for some reason I just don't think it appeared on the TV that much. But have to say, huge fan of that original trilogy, more so than any other kind of franchise. I mean, I did love my comics, so I was all into that and into He-Man and Transformers and all of that, but they were all secondary. Star Wars was the top for me, and just everything else came after that. And when the special edition edits came along, that was something different, but we'll get onto that later. One thing I will just mention just before we move on, I am actually, according to the 2001 census in the UK, recorded down as an actual Jedi.
Yeah. So you did do that then.
And may the force be with you too.
I remember doing something very similar.
Yep, 0.7 of the UK is apparently a Jedi, according to that specific sentence. So
yeah, I think I'd now describe myself as a lapsed Jedi at this point.
Yeah, I think I'm a casual Jedi
so
myself.
Chris, what about yourself? What are your thoughts on the original trilogy? Where does it sit for you in that nostalgia sweet spot?
I think it sits quite high in mine. I'd probably say, and Dave does say I don't have really much of an exclusive list. I do say quite without any fear that I have. This is one of the best movies I've ever seen. Quite a lot, to be honest. So the list is growing every time we watch something I like. But I think for me, growing up, obviously me and Dave, there's only a couple of years between us, and my whole sort of growing up, I was into, like Dave said, Transformers, GoBots, obviously cartoons, stuff like that, He-Man. But Star Wars was always there. I remember saving up, and for my birthday one year, I think I mentioned it on the last podcast, I was saved up for the Millennium Falcon. I went into Manchester, bought it. I used to play The Empire Strikes Back on the Atari 2600. I'm a massive gamer, even to this day. I play hours and hours of gaming across every console for everything. And the Star Wars games have followed me across the Battlefront games, things like that. So this trilogy meant so much to me that I think until stuff like Back to the Future came out, and I'll be honest, I hold Back to the Future higher than Star Wars these days, even though I'll be there watching Star Wars midnight in a few weeks. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's there. There's stuff around my little man cave and stuff of Star Wars and everything. I've got Rey near me and stuff like that. You know, obviously not the proper Daisy Ridley like, but you know, I've got a little figure sort of thing, bringing me drinks and that. But no, it means so much to me. And I think the one thing I would say, having gone back and watched them again, and I've not watched the whole trilogy for maybe 2 or 3 years, is, as Dave mentioned about this other cut that came out, I don't rate them as high as the originals. I think the original ones, especially on VHS, had a charm about them, which I absolutely loved. So yeah, it's something followed me through my family. Everyone loves me in my family. I just think growing up, being 40 odd and being born in 1978, you couldn't not be into them. Obviously, I'm glad I got into them instead of Indiana Jones, like Scott. But, but anyway, yeah, that's where I am with the trilogy. Yeah.
Fair show. Excellent. Although, did you just say GoBots?
Yeah,
GoBots. Yeah, GoBots. Transformers. Wow. Do you remember them, Scott?
Yeah, I do remember GoBots. They were like poor man's Transformers.
Yeah. And they only said 9 kids. What do you expect?
It's like when you got Duplo instead of Lego as a kid.
I had, saying that, I had not Starscreen. I had the Transformer, the white Transformer with the red decals. That was neither a Autobot or a Decepticon. He ended up being an Autobot in the end and beating up what's he called? Megatron. But I can't remember his name.
Is it Jetfire? Something like that.
That's it, Jetfire. I had Jetfire, and I actually ended up breaking it against the wall, and it still to this day haunts me. Them G1 Transformer figures. Oh, anyways, that was another birthday I saved up for after I got the Millennium Falcon. Disgusting.
Excellent. So Mike, you are of a different era to all of us, really.
All of us. The outside.
Yeah, that's it. You're coming in as a damned millennial.
I know. I'm the wrong generation.
That's it. Well, you're a prequeler, so. But what does the OG trilogy mean to you? I mean, you came at it from a different point of view. Do you come at it pre or post special editions?
Well, I'll get into the depths of special editions obviously later on. I think we're all going to have a few opinions on that, and I looked up a lot of different things about the special editions because of the special editions. The biggest changes and things were 97, and I was born in 94. To make all you guys inside yourselves go, ugh! Sorry about that. But I've got an older brother. He was born in 76, and my dad got me into Star Wars a lot. And not to get too deep, but if anyone knows me from the show or anything like that, my dad passed away when I was 19, and I have a Star Wars tattoo to commemorate him, essentially. And basically, it's of Anakin and Obi-Wan fighting, and above it is Darth Vader. So it's a combination of the prequels and the originals, that sort of, that moment almost that makes, kind of intertwines the two. So Star Wars for me, the reason I mention that is because Star Wars for me, not only am I an absolutely massive Star Wars nerd, I read the books and the comics and the games and etc. I know all this stupid amounts of lore. If anyone listened to the last episode, they'll know that I'm the one with a little, actually, there is a little bit here that you don't know about that's actually canon. So that's kind of my jam. But it means a lot to me because a lot of my childhood, I had the lightsabers and things and playing with Lego and, fighting with my friends in the garden until one of them, normally my mates, gets their knuckles smashed in because I'm a far better swordsman than them. My mum moaning at me rather than me, if I was a parent, I'd be like, well, better practice your lightsaber skills, aren't you? But beside the point in that is, I used to watch them all with my dad, on TV a lot of the time. I think on ITV like every Friday for ages, and then they would stop. The Indiana Jones films would come on for a bit, and then it would go back to Star Wars. It's just, I just remember this. My dad showed me all the Star Wars films, and so I used to watch them all the time with him. And he passed away before even Episode 7 was even announced. So for me, the prequels and the originals are really intertwined with that. And as my dad was, God, now he'd be almost 70, so you could tell he was the generation of Star Wars, the originals. So we used to talk a lot about the sort of differences there and things. But the originals, to me, they're kind of this, they don't have all my favorite moments in Star Wars. Like, I would say, to be a kind of unbalanced in a sense, I think the originals are really, really consistent. I think that the original, 4, 5, and 6, they're just brilliant throughout generally. Whereas I think that the prequels, not to do this big comparative thing, but the prequels comparatively, I find they're generally lower quality, but they have occasional moments that soar really high, and that's kind of where I hold them. So it's almost like the original is the staple in the middle of the whole, there's soon to be 9 films. The original is kind of in the middle of that, like holding everything together. Like, old fans and new fans, everyone kind of agrees. They go, okay, well, at least if you don't like the sequels, you don't like the prequels, you do still like the originals, don't you? Like, that's still like the baseline. Like, if you don't like the originals, you can just fuck off. Like, to be completely honest. Yeah. That's my view anyway.
No, I think that's a pretty fair assessment, to be perfectly honest. It's sort of, you may get all kinds of the different sides of, even as we say, toxic fandom, but everyone pretty much agrees on the original trilogy. Having said that, if you go back and listen to the last podcast in this collaboration, we may have disgruntled quite a few people, actually. So, and we may continue that here.
Oh yeah, if you listen to our VHS, we're really worried about
that. Well, as it's actually Luke Skywalker who says it first, because even if everyone thinks it's Han Solo, I've got a bad feeling about this because I've got a feeling I'm going to get some backlash after today's episode.
Well, I'm meant to be the biggest Star Wars fan, and I'm the one who's actually kind of agreeing with you guys, going, actually, to add on to you ripping into it, there's even more detail you don't know. It makes it even worse.
What you didn't spot was...
Well, let's do it then. So let's say we're going to recommend, if you want to go back and see what we said about New Hope, go back and listen to the last episode of the VHS Strikes Back or Comics in Motion. But let's sort of have a bit of a recap here. So A New Hope, I think we all said, directed by George Lucas, written by George Lucas, and it's very George Lucas. And that's not always a good thing, is it, really? Let's be fair.
That's the prequels. That's basically what the prequels are, is pure George Lucas unfiltered.
Yeah.
But you know how flawed they are.
Well, that's the thing. I actually think, looking at the rest of these, looking at sort of Empire and Jedi, the more you do it, the more you sort of, and this is the first time I've ever really thought this, the more he is filtered, the more he is restrained, and somebody else comes in and either gives it a polish or sort of like, directs, the better these actually become. And... I'm happy to voice it. I think A New Hope is very much like this happens and then this happens and then this happens and then this happens. It's just like a series of events with very little emotion. We talked about the fact that Luke Skywalker grieves more for an old man he meets briefly than for the two parent figures he sees like brutally burnt to death, and other things like that. So I think that I don't think George is a strong director. However, getting into Empire, he passes it over to Irving Kershner, who is a sort of a director for hire. Apparently, he now does a filmmaking school, or he runs a filmmaking school, or he did. But written by Lawrence Kasdan and Lee Brackett, I I really like Empire. I really enjoyed it this time. What's people's overall thoughts on Empire? Just throwing it out there.
Well, I want to cut in before Chris ruins everything. Because I already know your bloody opinion. I will say it's funny though. My girlfriend, I mentioned in the previous podcast, we started watching all the Star Wars films last year, and she loves Harry Potter. I love Star Wars, but I've seen all Harry Potter. She hadn't seen all the Star Wars. So I want to make it fair, show her the better series. And I showed her like mixed feelings about all of them. We'll get into the all details and stuff about other ones in the other shows and things. But specifically with the original trilogy, she genuinely doesn't actually like Empire very much. And I can't, and it's an interesting perspective that I want to just say about Empire, which is I hadn't thought of because, I grew up, I think I saw, 4, 5 and 6 close with 1 and 2 sort of thing. But, with and I think I'd already seen 4, 5, and 6 and 1 around the same time, and then slowly up, the other ones. But essentially, what she said she didn't like about it the most was the middle when he's on Dagobah with Yoda, which obviously for a lot of us is almost some of our favourite parts because that's when you get a bigger view of the actual Force. Because I've seen New Hope, it's a bit more like, oh, there's the Force. You can, change people's minds arbitrarily, randomly, occasionally, and you have light swords, and that's pretty much it. And choke people if you're bad. Whereas like obviously in Empire, it brings it forward. It gives you a bit more of an idea of what the Force is capable of and the sort of philosophy behind the Force. Whereas where my girlfriend had seen the prequels and she saw Yoda as this, essentially in the second and third one especially, he goes mental and he's, flipping around and doing impossibly gigantic, crazy aerobatics and fighting in another old man. And it's like, it's really cool to watch, to some degree. But she saw that and understood, obviously, in the prequels, they kind of explain the Force in more of a scientific-y way and stuff. But then in Empire, if you've already seen the prequels and then you watch Empire, the middle bit, which is like the substance of the Force and the thing that kind of makes Star Wars a bit more special, she was like, this is just really boring because I already know all this, which is a weird perspective that I hadn't actually thought of, which actually upsets me quite a lot because that's one of my favourite parts of Empire, I'd say, is that, and obviously the end is amazing, but I love the middle. Like, it's the lull, but it is where I find almost the universe of Star Wars that made it what it is today kind of pushes things become together.
I actually completely agree with you. I think there are parts of Empire that I think stand out, and I do like that like you say, that bit on Dagobah in the middle, and it's because it's Luke becoming not just a Jedi but a better character.
Not so whiny.
Like, he goes through stuff, and it like, although there are moments in that sort of bit where he is still a bit of a whiny bitch, like when he's trying to sort of get the X-wing. I mean, it's funny, like he's trying to get the X-wing out of the swamp water, and you get. I mean, there are massive inconsistencies. Sort of even in the prequels, they say Jedi's are not, do not believe in absolutes. And then you've got in the original trilogy, you've got Jedi saying, do or do not. There is no try. And you're like, that's an absolute, isn't it? So, but I love the fact he basically burns Luke Skywalker. He's like, Luke's like, raise the X-wing. Oh, I can't do it. It's too hard. And Yoda's just like, oh, and just
judge me by my size.
Yeah, and then just does it, and it's almost like a in your face. And so I really enjoy that bit on Dagobah. I think it's great. I think it matures Luke and makes him a much more interesting character going into the third act and Jedi. But I can understand that thing of, well, I've just watched the prequels and I understand about the Force, and unfortunately I understand it as metachlorians and all the other stuff. So yeah, I can see what you're saying.
Oh God!
But
The glory of midichlorians. Yeah. Everyone loves them. Everyone. Let's just all agree before we go any further. Everyone who's ever liked Star Wars agrees the best thing that George Lucas ever did was quantifying Force and ruining all of the fantasy around it and completely getting rid of it. So it can be quantifiable because nothing says enlightenment or special powers like you can quantify it on a blood reader. Like diabetes. It's great.
Well, that's the thing that.
Well, I'm not going to spoil the next episode and keep my cards close to my chest.
Yeah, we will get into the fact that basically it removes Luke from being the special one. But yes, I totally agree. I actually really like that bit. And Chris, I'm going to keep you muzzled for just a little bit longer on this.
I'm biting my fist. I'm telling you, I'm biting my
rabid
fist.
So
dog,
Dave,
isn't he?
what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on what we're saying?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, what did you call Luke? A whiny bitch? I would say he's a headstrong, belligerent little shit. I mean, Yoda just, he can't tell him anything, can he? Even when he's talking about the cave, you won't need any weapons. Yeah, I'm going to stick him on anyway because I know everything. Just fucking listen to him, will you? For God's sake, can you sort of see? I think on this rewatch, I've seen more that headstrong, Luke, and being utterly belligerent more than anything because I don't know, not jumping too far ahead in Empire, but he goes to save. He walks right into the trap, and Yoda's telling him, "Don't go. You're walking right into a trap." And he's like, "Yeah, but I know what I'm doing." It's like that, that arrogance of youth. So yeah, I'd noticed that a lot more this time than I ever had before. I don't hold Empire in such high esteem as a lot of other people, but I kind of feel like that's because of the order that I watched the movies in. It was years before I saw Empire, and yet I'd grown to love and rewatch and watch and watch and watch and watch again, Star Wars and then The Return of the Jedi. So I don't know if I've, whereas probably both of those two, Star Wars and then Return of the Jedi, I've probably watched into the hundreds. Empire, I've probably watched into the tens. But picking up on that lull, I do think, it's not just about understanding what the Force is. I do think there's a genuine pacing problem there. And it's all wrapped up in the editing because you've got these cuts that go from kind of Luke on Dagobah, and then you've got Han and the Millennium Falcon running from the Empire, and that seems like it's happening over days or maybe a week. Whereas you get the feeling like what's going on with Luke and Yoda should be happening over a few months. You
It is a weird.
you can't
It is a weird
master
one.
the Force in a week, surely.
I think I can't remember exactly from my knowledge of in the comics, but I think there is some sort of generally among the fans there is this weird grey area of how long they're actually on there, because as you've rightly said, it seems like almost from Luke's perspective it would be weeks and weeks, maybe a couple of months, but yeah, for Han and Leia and stuff, it seems like maybe a day. Like it could even be almost in an afternoon, couldn't it? From escaping the Empire to kind of get the Bespin, and maybe having like a rest there for like an evening, and then the next day. But you could even probably argue in the morning they escape the Empire, the evening they try to have that dinner with Darth Vader and stuff, and then by nighttime Han was frozen. It's like if you said to me canon that is one day, I'd be like, that seems right. That doesn't seem very consistent. But yeah, with Luke on Dagobah, you're like, what? Like surely, as you say, he must learn either be the quickest learner ever, or there's some sort of odd time lapse going on.
There was no Rocky montage or anything.
That's what it needed. A John Williams scored
It
montage.
did.
Yeah.
That and Burt Reynolds.
Yeah,
You are
obviously,
right
Bert.
on that
Yeah,
and before, sorry, Scott. Before I hand over to Chris to launch into what we all know he's going to launch into, I will just say one other thing that happens all before this is, again, what I noticed going back this time is Han Solo is a fucking prick, right? Absolute
to Leia.
prick to Leia.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and again, we've seen a lot with on on the VHS, going back and looking at a lot of 70s and 80s movies that, by God, everyone's a little bit rapey, and
Blade Runner. Do you remember we talked about Blade Runner on my show? And it was like Harrison Ford as well. And we watched that, and you're like, oh, he's actually literally grabbing her by the throat and pushing her against a wall.
Yeah,
oh, this isn't.
There's a bit of a
This doesn't
side
feel
thing.
good.
Actually, for the newer podcast I'm just doing, Stories Out of Time and Space, me and Julian Darius literally just did Blade Runner, and we really went to town on that scene. In that where he literally rapes Rachel, but it's more than that because people kept saying, oh yeah, she's a woman. No. We know at that point she's a replicant, so she's actually a slave class. So not only is he enforcing his gender, he's enforcing his superiority onto her. It's really bad. It's a real Harrison Ford, man. Telling you, he's dodgy dude. But yeah, no, I'll say one thing. Watching this, I was going to get to it because you're right. It's one of the points I've got down here. Is the fact that I had to check the timeline on this. I googled the timeline for not only what's the time between the end of A New Hope and the start of Empire, But I actually Googled, like, what's the time period of the events in Empire Strikes Back? And there's a lot of different people who've got a lot of different opinions, so it's never clear.
Between
Yes,
New
that
Hope and
seems to
Empire,
be
it's about
pretty
3 years,
much a
though, isn't it? And
consensus.
then, and then
Yeah.
I think Empire to Return of the Jedi, it's about a year to a year and a half. No, 6 months to a year and a half, I think, was the around about time between those two. But yeah, we're going to hear. So I did interrupt. I realized I interrupted Dave actually on his point about Han. I hope I didn't. If there's anything more to add before, sorry, I just completely cut you off there. I realized.
No, I didn't notice. So go ahead.
Okay,
well, that's good. Got away with it.
Guys, if we're ready, we're going to release the Phelps. Go for it, Chris.
You want to take a big deep breath?
Okay. So I have been literally biting my fist here. I actually really, the last time I'd watched the full trilogy was before I went to see The Force Awakens. So I thought we're going to watch them. I actually watched them, as you said before, guys. Like you were saying, Scott. I actually watched Mike's girlfriend. I watched the prequels first, so we did them in proper chronological order, and then we did with this, the original 3. And I didn't really enjoy them as much as I remember. I'd probably not watched them properly all the way through for maybe 3 or 4 years, and I'm like, this can't be right. What's going on? Then I really enjoyed The Force Awakens, and I went from there. I've actually enjoyed all the latest movies, even the last one, which I know is atrocious, but I do love the bit in the middle with Snoke and Kylo Ren and Rey. I do like that bit when they take him out. A bit predictable, but I do like that. But anyway, the Luke stuff, let's say no more on that shit, but we'll definitely get to that when we talk about that later on. But I've always wondered with Empire, because like I say, I had the game on the Atari. It was a fucking atrocious game. You were just doing that, the Hoth fight scene at the start where you're in Luke's sort of ship and you had to put the rope around the bottom of the AT-ATs and stuff, to make him. And that was basically the game, and it was absolutely atrocious game. And obviously we're talking probably 83 or something when that was out. But I always wondered why I hated Empire, and I didn't hate it this time. I actually really enjoyed it. I think this is probably the first time since I was a kid I've actually watched it again and really, really enjoyed it. And I even messaged you, Dave, didn't I, saying what a great film. And I honestly, I think a lot of the stuff with Star Wars is what you said, Dave, for me as well. It's the music, the musical score. All right, you can tell it's John Williams because some of it, I always remember as a kid, it always passed over into one of my favourite films, Superman, especially Superman 2. I absolutely love that film. And a lot of the music is very, very similar, especially when Clark loses his powers in that in Superman 2. It's very, very, it's almost note for note. So obviously the music makes it, but I really don't want to do this because I'm going to literally become the Simon Cowell of our quartet. You've got like the nice people. Well, yeah. I'm being controversial now. Mike, please forgive me on this. And I know I may have teed you up before we started, but I fucking hate Yoda. And that's exactly why I never really liked Empire. I know what you three have said about this bit. I absolutely hate this bit in the middle. It absolutely does nothing for me. Not only is Frank Oz who does Yoda's voice, who's basically just, you know what? I've run out of voices. Let's just do Miss Piggy. And that's always what pisses me off about Yoda. And it's gone very quiet in here, but it just pisses me off. It always has done as a kid because I used to watch it and think, I'm just not convinced by this Yoda character. It's just Miss Piggy. And it's the set. Obviously, it's Jim Henson. It's the proper animatronic stuff and all that. And you can tell that because Luke's struggling to walk around the room when he's in Dagobah and that. And I just, for that moment of that film, that's the moment where I'll get up and make a brew or something because it just does not interest me. The only thing that interests me is when Yoda actually changes and starts talking to Obi-Wan about, I can't train him and stuff. And he changes from being this bumbling sort of little animal to being sort of revealing himself as Yoda. But the rest of it, I can't stand. I really, really can't stand. And I'm so sorry to do it, guys. But the rest of the film is on the money for me. But this bit, I fucking hate. And I knew straight away. And I don't like Yoda as a Jedi. I've never been convinced by him. Even in the prequels when he's doing all that fucking Jackie Chan bollocks, it just is absolutely nothing for me. I just don't believe for 1 minute he can beat any... Is it Count Dooku whoever he's fighting against? Yeah, I don't believe any of that nonsense at all. Christopher Lee, I don't believe any of it. I'm so sorry. But anyway, I'll let you debate that.
It's fine. You've been told your opinion. And I understand. I can understand that. And, it is... You bring up a good point because when you're first introduced to Yoda, and I'd forgotten about this, like he comes in as like a little bit, almost like as a comedy sidekick. Like he does a little comedy bit where he's nicking food. He has a little fight with R2, and it's only sort of then after a while that he reveals himself to be, as you say, sort of like the wise old Yoda. I can't say, I do know. I'm trying to sort of I can see what you're saying, and I do understand it. But I just really enjoy it. I just think the puppetry is great. I think the feel of this whole section is really doing it for me. Yeah.
Hey, you're right. Look, it's opinions in it. Everyone has them. I think for me, and I think probably as well, it got a bit like I love films. I hate films when the baddies win, and I think probably because I know that Return of the Jedi is my favorite out of all three of them, despite the end bit, which I will pick holes in because Dave just loves the Ewoks, and we'll get into that obviously. But the irony of that, obviously, Dave, before you have a go at me. But I think it's the fact that I know that they win at the end of Return of the Jedi is what in Empire puts me off. I think I don't know why, because it feels like they have to do it. It's a bit like what's happened with the Avengers, Infinity War, and that, even though that's a great film, the Endgame is superior because they get the result like we all want. Because I think if I'd gone to watch it in the cinema, you're like, no, I've got to go back. Like you were saying before about Harry Potter stuff, Mike. The Harry Potter stuff I absolutely love, but it's left on a cliffhanger literally until the last scene of the last film. You've got there to your 8 or 9 films before you get any conclusion. Lord Voldemort gets his comeuppance, spoiler alert, basically at the end of the actual whole 9 or 8 films or whatever it is. So I do get it. I think if I was a kid watching it, I'd have been pissed off. I probably would have been crying coming out of the cinema knowing that Darth Vader and them bastards had won, for that film. So
it's funny you mention that because, in my opinion, what I like about films a lot, which is one of the things that I was hoping for in Last Jedi, but didn't quite get. But once again, we'll talk about that in probably my show later on. But I actually prefer films when they end in a darker sense, a lot more so when it's a series and things, because this is going to sound so patronizing, and I don't mean it in that way, but we know it's not real, so there's no consequence at all. And also in Star Wars, anyone who good dies, especially in the original ones, just comes back anyway. And if you watch most TV shows and things, or films and whatever, you either get a sequel spin-off movie like they did with Solo, or you get some sort of flashbacks or something, or they come back to life in some bullshit way. These sort of things happen quite a lot. So whenever bad things happen, it's not as much weight to it, I'd find. But I really like it when films end on a dark tone, because even when I was younger, especially as a teenager and stuff, being all full of angst and listening to metal music and whatnot, it was always, life isn't that good. Life's actually quite shit a lot of the time, isn't it? And that sort of bad attitude. And it's like, to be fair, a lot of life is quite crap a lot of the time. So people, a lot of the time, they don't want to go into a film and then have this deep, horrible, dire, bleak film and then come out of it and go, Jesus, I feel worse when I went in. So I at both parts I agree and disagree in a sense, but for me to actually say an opinion rather than just spouting off random shit is I think out of the 3, Empire is my favorite, but I would say Return of the Jedi is really, really close. And I will say, I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, I think the start of both films are absolutely amazing, but I think apart from the very first probably 5 minutes of Revenge of the Sith, the absolute start, the first third, I'd say, because most of the Star Wars films are kind of generally split up into almost thirds in a sense, or especially when they go on different planets. If you notice, it's third or fourths usually. They stick to 3 or 4 main places generally, and I find that in Return of the Jedi, the Jabba's palace is probably my favourite first third of any of the Star Wars films so far. I absolutely love that scene. So that's kind of jumping ahead a little bit. I'm sorry.
No, it's funny you say that, because I think I actually, and to say what you say about the darker tone of this, and to what Chris says about this coming a cliffhanger, this film for the first half tricks you, like it really wants to. It's really working hard to trick you into thinking they're onto a winner, because the whole film. I mean, apart from the opening scene, which Luke getting taken by the snow beast, whatever it's called. Mike? Wampa, thank you. Obviously that's actually in there because he had a car crash or a motorbike crash between the filming of or literally just before they started filming on Empire. So they were like, okay, he's got these sort of his face is all scratched up. We sort of need to make an excuse for that. So that was added in a bit later. But I love all the attack on Hoth. Then he has to go to Dagobah. So you're like, he's getting real training. He's becoming a real Jedi. They're running when they run from the Empire. They're going to Cloud City. You think, they've got allies and all this other stuff. And you do think, like, okay, this is actually, although there's a sort of a slightly more serious tone to the film, you think they're building up to a victory again at the end of this film. And then the moment that Darth Vader appears on Cloud City is the moment you go, oh shit, this may not be as simple as you think.
Yeah.
And that's when it sort of starts to spiral out of control. And even as a kid, I used to love that. I was like, oh, actually, no, they're pulling the rug like this. They're going to get out of this. Oh, they're going to get out of this. And then you sort of have because when Luke arrives on, we're jumping all over the place, so please jump in. But so when Luke arrives on Cloud City to save Leia and Han and Chewie and all that sort of thing, you think, okay, this is it now. This is going to be how it's going to pan out. This is going to be the big fight. There's going to be a big fight at Cloud City, and they're going to escape, and that'll be it. And it doesn't work out that way, and it starts to sort of like keep getting worse and worse. And you're like, all right, this is actually going to go really badly. So
I was going to say one of my favorite bits about that is, I think one of my favorite parts of Empire, odd enough, is just when you realize how powerful Vader is, because and obviously New Hope is quite strong, Force choking people, whatever, but you don't really get to see him in action that much. Even obviously the Obi-Wan fight's a bit lackluster, as we discussed in the last episode. But when Han walks in and the shutters open and you see Vader sat there, and like Leia I think screams, and it's immediately anyone watches like, oh shit, and then Han pulls out his gun and shoots immediately, and you're like, oh shit, but then he puts his hand in the way and just stops it, and you're like, oh no. And you're like, when that happens, the whole tone, basically, as you say, Scott, the whole of it just goes, oh no, what have we done? Like, and you see Luke going there, and you're like, wait a minute, Darth Vader can block a blaster with his hand. It's like, what? And is that sort of, that's what I like about it, where it is, as you say, exactly, you phrase it perfectly, pulling the rug from under you.
Well, it's the way he does it. Like, Vader's so calm, let's say, because we've said that the film starts with Han being a little bit of there's a little bit of toxic masculinity, and we'll get to that in a bit. But, like you say, the moment he comes in, like, his reflexes come in, like, he's pretty badass. Like, he just pulls the gun and starts firing, and that's cool. But then Vader sort of, like you say, he blocks 2 laser blasts and then uses the force pull to sort of retrieve the blaster out of Han's hand. You're like, yeah, you're fucked. Like, because I can't remember what he says. He says, like, we have to talk, or I
think we've been expecting you, or it's something
that's
like
it, I've been expecting you. It's like the way he says it is so calm and so collected. It's like he's not worried about this at all. And then he says something later to Lando Calrissian when he says about he's going to take Leia and the Wookiee, and he says, "No, you said they were going to stay here under my protection." And he says, "I'm changing the plan. I'm changing the deal. I'm changing the bargain." And he doesn't give a shit. Like, this guy is just like, he has got total confidence in every situation. Like, he doesn't think anyone can beat him. And I just find that more and more chilling throughout this film. That, like, yeah, there isn't anyone, and that's why you need Luke.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing, actually, that I had a problem with this time?
Just the one.
Well, obviously we know when this film came out that Doc Brown hadn't created the time machine. So how the fuck did the Empire get to Lando Calrissian's place when Boba Fett was following them and they got there before him? How the fuck did they get there? I'm sorry, I was sat there this time going, that is bullshit from China. I'm sorry. Unless they got lost on the way with the A to Z or something.
I will say, I will say, you notice that actually when they land, they meet Lando already. Then they separate from Lando for a little while, and that's when Leia's in the room with Han and says, "Oh, what's taking so long? I don't like this. I've got a bad feeling," or whatever. And then Lando comes in and goes, "Oh, hey, everything's fine. Let's go." And then they go see Vader. I'm pretty certain, any bigger fans of me, you may correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty certain there is actually some sort of comic which happens and it shows actually what happens. And it was basically, because I mentioned something about Lobot as well, which is the guy with the thing on his head, the bald dude with like a, that's his name. Something about basically Lando, I think the Empire arrive at almost the same time, I'm pretty sure. But what happens is Lando basically goes and talks to Han and stuff, leaves them in a room, then goes and talks to the Empire, who I think Bespin is already under the control of the Empire. And then it's like, Vader's like, look, seriously, if you don't give him over, we're just going to kill everyone here. And it's like, oh, okay. And then they kind of go back and betray him. I'm pretty certain that is why. But this is one of those big things which I do agree with you, which is one thing I've noticed with all my friends whenever they watch a lot of the Star Wars films, just the films, is there are so many inconsistencies or plot holes in all of them, unfortunately, which happens a lot. And only I seem to have all the answers, and it makes me always love them more because I can, any flaws I can almost beat. But it is
you know what, Mike,
with
though?
film.
Comic writers are such the underappreciated people of the whole literary universe because they are working their nuts off to try and plug all of these little holes, which is just sloppy storytelling. And it's just like, George Lucas is just like, yeah, whatever. He just turns up and, Darth Vader got there before. No one actually thinks through the detail. And it's the comic writers that are doing all of this. And the fact that, when Han and Leia turn up, and Lando Calrissian, who I think gets a bit of a rough ride, I don't think he could have done anything else, to be honest, in that position. But the reason they're all so smiley is because they were out on the piss with Eric Idle the night before. And he had this weird stuff. Yeah. He had this concoction that they used to give the extras on The Life of Brian to keep them all full of energy and stuff. So that's why they were all smiley and, your old smoothie. So, yeah, no, it's great. But God bless all the comic writers, I say.
I agree. But
I agree with you there, but I will say, that's the problem with this film. With I will say, to add a little bit of sprinkling of Star Wars knowledge, I will not try and go in too much every time I pipe my voice up, just splur, verbally waterboard people. But it is.
No, it's good. Yeah,
it is one of those things where it's just with. I do. This is the thing. It's kind of double-edged sword in a sense, or two. I don't know how I'm phrasing it, but basically, it's annoying that they have to explain something in a comic when it should be literally take 10 seconds, maybe 5 seconds, just to show some snippet of Vader appearing or walking through a doorway, or some really subtle thing, like you see his ship land in the background in a shot where Leia and Lando and whatever, or Han, are looking in one direction, and you see some sort of Imperial cruiser in the background land. That was it. That's all you take. Even it goes back and edit 100 times and put in loads of shit we don't need, and yet you could have changed the scene to make the timings make more sense.
So to be fair, if you sacrifice a little bit of logic and things that make sense for that reveal, can you imagine being in the cinema at that time when the door opens? It's a very relaxed environment, isn't it? With Han and Leia, and they're just chatting and whatever. It feels very safe. The door opens and Vader's there. Like you say, he puts his hands up, blocks a couple of lasers, uses the Force to bring the laser. If I'm sat in the cinema at that time, I'm thinking, holy fucking shitballs, what has just happened? So I'm willing to forgive all of that for just that reveal.
I'd agree with that. The way the reveals paced,
I do.
Is good. I agree with what you were saying there, Chris. It's one of the things that as you get older, it becomes slightly more glaring as a problem. But like you say, that reveal I love, and from that moment on, I really enjoy this film. I mean, but I want to jump back for two things actually quickly. Is the other thing I really enjoy is the battle on Hoth. The snow battle. But let's also talk about Han Solo at the beginning of this film and his interactions with. We learn she is the twin sister of Luke Skywalker in this film, and so she is either it's been 3 years since New Hope, so she is about 21, 22. Okay, Han is probably in his mid-30s. So I'm just going to leave that there for a start.
I think, when we did the Raiders of the Lost Ark review, which was 81, so it was a year after Empire, Harrison Ford was 39. Yeah. So he's late 30s, and Carrie Fisher is late teens, early 20s.
She was 18 on the set of New Hope, so
yeah. It's all, lots of wrong, isn't it?
In the universe. Yeah, well, the thing is with Han is it's because I noticed this when I watched him again, which my favourite incarnation, if that's the word, of Han is actually Force Awakens Han. I love old Han. He's great because he's just a bit more chill. But you like the cockiness of him in a lot of sense, when he's like, oh, I can do this, I can do everything, and it's quite fun to run around with him essentially. But yeah, when you see him with Leia at the start, he's you forget. But as I say, like I watch these films basically every year. So when I rewatch them for the umpteenth time, I did notice when it's in Hoff, they're constantly stopping and him saying, he calls her princess as a joke and things, but he gets really close to her and kind of grabs her and holds her and gets closer and back, and it's like he's basically as close as you could get to proper sexual harassment without being so obviously blatant. You know what I mean? He's like really on that line of between charmer and harasser. Do you know what I mean?
If it wasn't
is
a PG, he'd have gone, oh, you're a fucking lesbian.
Yeah.
That is the level that he's operating at.
I did want to say something. I forgot to mention in Scott mentioned it in the last episode, I'll quickly say, which is New Hope being a U, and it's still a U, even though in the film you see an arm get cut off with blood, which for some reason, even though lightsabers meant to cut through, and make it whatever. But and you see that, and I was like, it's weird that these films now are all U's, yet the SpongeBob movie is a PG. So in theory, the SpongeBob movie is actually more scary to your kids than the 3 Star Wars films.
The film that broke the mold was Gremlins.
Yes.
And again, I think Steven Spielberg had a lot to do with this. So Poltergeist, which we did recently, was a PG, and they wanted to make Gremlins a PG as well, and that was the thing that eventually broke people, as to say, you know what, I think there's some middle ground here.
He got the trifecta just on that. So you're right. It's Spielberg, his influence. He got the sort of Poltergeist sort of started the discussion. Gremlin sort of pushed it, but it was also Temple of Doom. The BBFC were really pushing for massively heavy edits, especially in So when he removes a man's living heart and sort of holds it up high, they were like, you can't show that, and they were like, but it's integral to the plot. And you're like,
it's like Bambi.
So Spielberg was part of the reason we get a 12, which that's quite interesting really when you think about it.
I think Sam Raimi's Spider-Man was a part. I think it's loads of different strands of the tapestry. But what I heard it's kind of Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man film. That was quite, because they were like, you can't say it's a PG because obviously the bit at the end where you get stabbed by the flying thing and there's a lot of peril and threat, but also it's not 15 necessarily. And I think a lot of those films, including I think Batman Forever or something, it was that era. It was that sort of era where some of the films you have mentioned, Scott, I do think have that as well. But it was weird. Then obviously Star Wars now, they're regularly 12 since Revenge of the Sith. Obviously Revenge, I think Solo. But then again, it's weird. 12s just seem to be almost everything now. So they get away with so much in a 12,
spot, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's that thing. I mean, there was a cinema rating of 12 before there was a VHS and DVD. So everything that was a 12 at the cinema automatically became a 15, or with cuts became a PG on VHS. So you will see there are films that became a PG on video or early DVD, but they were cut from the cinema version. Or if they didn't want to do the cuts, they became a 15, and then they eventually introduced the 12, like you say, in the mid to late 90s, I think.
You know, one thing that you say about the U, because I always remember it getting on video being a U, and I always used to think that is, what is all your thoughts on the fact that it is a U, but Luke Skywalker has no fucking blood coming out of his arm when he gets it chopped off? What is the logical explanation? I know, Mike, you may have an explanation, but I genuinely not even now. I never bought that when I was a kid.
I'm gonna Mike, before you give your version, I'm just going to say before my headcanon has always been. I know it's sort of like you say, ruined by the first film, but I've always taken that it's a laser sword, so it sort of cauterizes the wound as it cut through. But that might be too easy.
When it's convenient.
Well, I think, to be honest, I haven't looked into this explicitly, but it is in all if you think about the prequels, every time someone gets a limb cut off and they get hit, like the scratches on them, it always does burn it, cauterize it, as you say, it slices it off. And I don't have an official answer for this, but the way I've tried to, when you get a jigsaw piece, it doesn't quite fit, you just get the scissors, cut it in so it fits in properly. That's how this is about to sound, okay? Because it is basically my own headcanon. And the only thing I can possibly think of is that the species that gets his arm cut off in the cantina, for some reason, maybe his arm is made not with the same flesh that human arms are made out of, or something like that. So when it gets sliced, it doesn't burn and cauterize like every other limb chopping off in every Star Wars iteration after that does since. But that's what I think. Maybe him in the cantina, he had, because of a different species of an alien, his arm for some reason was hotter, colder, I don't know, and that's what caused it to bleed. Whereas all the other iterations have been, to our knowledge, I think, have been humans with their arms and legs or whatever cut off. That's all I can think of. That hasn't been explicitly mentioned in canon, but that's how I naturalize it.
Now, we've successfully dodged Scott's question about Han Solo, I think. But what I'll put out there is, I think, again, I'm going to call out these special edition edits as completely ruining this trilogy. And essentially, I've got to say, in conclusion to that, I've got to say George Lucas didn't know what he had because he took what he had and made it worse. Now, I don't think we touched on this actually in our Star Wars review, but by making Guido shoot first and not having Han Solo as this very grey kind of character, everything in the Star Wars universe, it kind of needed to be black or white, it needed to be good or bad. I think, that's one of its appeals, is that you can really get behind that, the goodies, Darth Vader is all dressed in black and then you've got stormtroopers. It's all very binary. But I think he ruined that character. And for me, Han Solo, I used to play Star Wars when I was a kid all the time. My best mate at the time had blonde hair, so he was always Luke Skywalker.
Ooh, tough break.
And I was always Han Solo. And I was always like, oh, fucking hell, I want to be Luke Skywalker. And years later, I think, yeah, that didn't end well. But, for me, certainly looking back, you say, well, that's one of the most appealing things about Han Solo. He's not goody two-shoes, like Luke, who wants to go out and save the world and is brash and, just fucks things up, but lands on his feet. Han Solo is the one real interesting character. And George Lucas, with those special edits, ruins him.
I did have to look up some of the special edit things, because obviously, I think I briefly touched upon at the start, is that my remembrance of the edits, there's basically the two main times of edits, which is 1997, 2004. 2004 was obviously to put in the Hayden Christensen thing at the end of Return of the Jedi, and a lot of the adapting so that it fits in with the prequels. But in the 1997 special edition, I didn't realize how many different versions there were, and I actually had to I knew about a lot of them. I've got about 8 or so listed, but one of the things with the hand shot first thing is that in the original, it was hand shot first. Then in 97, it was Greedo shot first. And then in 2004, he made it so they both shoot at the same time, which is weird. And it's like, seriously, make your fucking mind up. Just stick to one and commit to it. No one cared that much about hand shooting first until you started changing it and pointing a big spotlight on it. And now everyone's there's a big, apparently, debate online. I think it's a bit more when it got edited again. But there's a whole online of it, kind of as you said, Dave, where it's Ham was meant to be this grey area. Him shooting first means he knew what was coming. It was his instincts that kicked in. He kind of beat Greedo. Greedo shooting first makes it so that Han shot as a reactionary thing, which means if Greedo didn't just happened to miss randomly a really powerful bounty hunter who's really been great on the run, missing someone point blank, if he hadn't just missed Han would be dead because he hasn't got good enough reactions. And then the final one where they both shoot at the same time is why?
But it looks so bad as well. It looks like a PlayStation 2 edit.
Yeah.
I've just got to call out George Lucas there. He didn't know what he had, and he just ruined it.
But this is the thing. George Lucas, the thing is, he likes, because this is a sci-fi fantasy film. He loves that fantasy element, and even though this has, Empire that has a darker tone and stuff, you can tell when Lucas has got his fingers all over it, and it's always, like I said, Star Wars is a positive film. There's no negative emotion in this. The Empire destroys a whole fucking planet, and nobody seems to get upset by it because they're too busy cheering for them having destroyed something else. It's just positivity. They can only celebrate things. He doesn't like to dwell on the negative. So to have a character that's grey, or a hero character grey, possibly leaning into dark when you think about it. He did not feel comfortable with that later on in reflection, and it shows. Really shows.
Yeah, I was just going to say as well, I know we're not on to Return of the Jedi yet, but for me, he ruins the whole end of that film with that edit.
Oh,
The
yeah.
edit I grew up watching, this fucking bit at the end pisses me off.
It annoys me.
I watched it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, the funny thing is about the special editions is so watching them all this time, and we talked about some of the ones in A New Hope. So when you're in Mos Eisley, like he's basically populated it to make it look like New fucking York. It's ridiculous. And then there's other bits throughout the stuff, the whole thing with Jabba the Hutt, which is unnecessary, and then there's all stuff later on. So he's all over it in New Hope, and we'll get on to Return of the Jedi in a minute, which is all over. But for some reason, it seems like Empire Strikes Back seems like the one that's almost escapes it the most. Like Cloud City is tidied up, and actually, I think that what they've done to Cloud City benefits it because it feels like a bigger, out the windows they tidied all that up. I love that. That's quite good. They tidy up the sort of the battle on Hoth so that you can't see through the sort of stanchion panels in the ships because of the way they did the projection, the green screen or blue screen as it would have been in the 70s and 80s. So they just do a lot of tidy up in Empire, and it sort of seems to stop there. And I'm like, oh, that's not bad. And then you get to Jedi, and you get a whole bleeding dance number with some hideous CGI monstrosity.
Let's get onto the monstrosity in a sec. I'll just say this one bit, and then I'll be quiet. But I do think Empire, in terms of the edits, is the one that comes out with the least afflictions. And I actually think when Luke gets ambushed by the Wampa, that is better. And you get more with the Wampa because you hardly get anything in the original cut. And you just kind of story-wise, you learn that, well, Luke is a bit more in touch with the Force, but he's not infallible, so I can get it from a story perspective. But the edits were not great, and the effects weren't great. And looking at the special editions there, you got the kind of Wampa like eating on some animal. So you get more of a sense of this thing is pretty dangerous. So I actually think that bit is better. I also want to say that I just think the Battle of Hoth is probably one of the best set pieces in the whole trilogy. I absolutely love that bit. And, the games that have come out, I think those bits are as good as anything in that trilogy. And I just absolutely love it.
Jumping off the edit thing, I've got a couple of notes just to add. Is with the Empire edits, as you say, obviously there's the Wampa bits and the sort of general cleaning up. But the only other two major edits that I could really find was one which was Boba Fett's voice was changed to reflect I forget his name, the actor who played Django and stuff,
the Kiwi guy.
Yeah. Who's in Moana and stuff. And I think he's great. I think that makes a lot of sense. Changing the voices, that's fine. And they basically did the same with Palpatine. Although the Palpatine hologram looks really weird. Compared to because the Palpatine hologram, they changed it. It was actually some other, I think it's an actress actually with a mask on who did the original.
Yeah, you're right.
The
Emperor was supposed to be a woman, wasn't she? Wasn't he? She?
I don't know if the Emperor. I don't know for sure. As in, I haven't looked into that part. I just know from looking up before this chat because I want to make sure I knew some of the differences between the special editions and the originals. Because obviously, I primarily grew up with the special editions. So yeah, the Emperor hologram changing, I think that's better. That makes more sense consistency wise, even though it looks a bit odd. And the Boba Fett thing, but yeah, I would say that apart from that, Empire's as the edits goes, great job, George, generally. But then as we said, you go into New Hope, and the Jabba edits were weird. The first Jabba edit looked really weird, and then the second one looks less weird, but still a bit odd. But then when Return of the Jedi, Jesus, they changed so much.
Well, let's jump on the caravan of courage and make our way to Endor.
Very good.
Because let's talk about Return of the Jedi, because it's another one. I mean, this comes out in 1983, directed by Richard Marquand, written by Lawrence Kasdan, and George Lucas is back writing the screenplay. So again, I feel the tone shifts in this film. You've had your sort of darker second, and now you're sort of trying to get back to that hopeful, more positive feel eventually. But you don't start that way. So what are people's thoughts on... In fact, I'm going to go the other way around on this. Chris, what are your thoughts on Jedi and any of the bits that you want to call out?
Yeah, I love it. Like I say, it's my favourite one of the three. I've probably watched it more than the other two, without a doubt. I think it's this, A New Hope, and then obviously Empire. I love the start of it. I mean, figures-wise, I had Luke in his black outfit. I had the Han Solo one, which I love him with the sort of blue jacket and the white shirt. I had that figure. I had Leia with that weird mask that she wears, which is in Jabba the Hutt's Leia. I didn't have, unfortunately, the one in the bikini and stuff, but we can't have everything. I always loved it. I've always loved this whole bit with Jabba the Hutt, and I love the sequence when they're trying to throw him off with the sort of walking the plank job and all that. It all came together really well at the start of this movie, and I think what I like is the fact that obviously Han Solo's at a disadvantage because he can't see because he's been in the carbonite and all that stuff. It's just the sad thing is watching the edit this time just pissed me off because you've got some fucking weird alien Tina Turner singing, and I'm like, what the fuck did you put all that in? It's not A New Hope when they go, he goes with Obi-Wan and stuff, and you've got the whole, you've got this fucking B-team band he's just threw in there, which is obviously part of the extra cuts, and that woman with the weird tentacles coming out of her head and stuff, doing the dancing and that, obviously Jabba throws to the big thing at the end, that big thing in the layer. Which I actually had that as a figure. That I'll take your word for it, Dave. I had that figure as well for some mad reason, but it just. And I actually had as well the actual. Go on, Dave. What's the monster that falls in with Luke when he falls in Jabba's lair? I actually had that figure as well.
It's the something
pig
guard.
Yeah, the pig guards. Oh, I should know the name of this in all honesty, but I can't off the top of my head. It's like a Otharian guard or something like that.
Yeah, I had that figure as well, but the whole part of Jedi is great. It's just what I found weird with not as much in Empire, but with Return of the Jedi. Watching this, I don't even know what cut I watched. It wasn't the original one by any means. Stretched imagination. Is Darth Vader sounds more like a voiceover artist than he did in the originals. I know David Prowse wasn't very happy, as we mentioned on the other podcast, but it just sounds like somebody's just got into a booth doing his voice because they got James Earl Jones to re-record some of his voice, and you can tell he's aged more. And I don't know. It was really off-putting watching it this time.
Well, I was going to say, just to add on, because I looked it up because I'm sad, Gamorrean Guard, there you go, that's the name of the thing. And there we go, and it was a Rancor, I didn't need to look that up, but yeah, it was a Rancor. I will say, with with looking in the special edition things, I actually didn't realise, because basically I think I saw the originals primarily from special edition, as in 1997. And that whole starting bit, which the singing bit, there's that that bit, I actually didn't realise that it was so different from the original until I watched today. But I actually watched it today because I was like, oh yeah, there's some edits, and I knew most of them are generally, because I've heard the No one and obviously a few of the others. But I didn't realise it was that different. I must have started watching it just as that version was kind of out and things, obviously because I was 3 or 4 when it came out. But yeah, I didn't realise, because the original is like, I read someone online saying, basically describing it, which was like the original wasn't that great, but it was all right. But it only went on for a little while, and it was kind of this little background thing that no one really looked about. They go, oh, it's Jabba's palace, cool. But then what they did is they got rid of it, added in something that everyone generally considers to look worse and be worse, but also extends it for some reason that no one asked for it more. And then also, not only have they extended something no one wants, but made such a big hoo-ha about it, it's gone, instead of being like this quiet little backgroundy noise thing that just kind of adds to the atmosphere a bit, you've put this giant spotlight like it's a big centerpiece, which has absolutely no substance for no reason. And it completely ruins the pacing of the film. It's like, hey, let's just have a minute and a half to show off George Lucas making some weird alien music video for no reason that no one asked for. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Why? That's the main question I want to ask George. Like, what do you think it adds?
I want to know why someone didn't do that at ILM or at 20th Century Fox, where he's gone, I want to do this, and I'm going to put all this in. It's going to cost this much money, because obviously these are there's several fully rendered CGI characters here, and they look fucking terrible. But no one's actually gone, George, why? Why do you want this? He's it's integral to the plot. It makes things. No, George. No. Shut up. Sit down.
He just had too much power, didn't he? He was overcome by the dark dark
Yeah.
side of the Force. I mean, he'd made that much money from the first film. You know, Empire Strikes Back was essentially an independent film, and he was just rolling in cash. Now, Return of the Jedi. In fact, go off on another tangent. So we went back and looked at Poltergeist. Now, basically, that was made in parallel to E.T. And Steven Spielberg is the producer, but only in name. He got in Toby Hooper, but basically he just stepped all over his toes, and it's a Steven Spielberg movie. For this, it's a George Lucas movie, and it's all over it. And I think he's just got more and more power and less people who will challenge him and say, no, George, that's not going to work. And you sort of see that with the special edition edits. The original cut, completely agree with that poster there, Mike. It was not good. You could pretty much see the strings hanging down. I had the little figure of the lady singer with the huge lips that came out, and it was not good, but it was on the screen for such a short amount of time you didn't even notice it. And then it became this big Disney musical number, and it's like, what the hell is this? And not only is it replacing existing characters, you get this new furry beast, to give this big tonsils CGI mess, and you're like, oh, that is terrible. And no one had the power to really, challenge George Lucas on it. And it is the trend that leads us to the prequels. Yeah. That's all I'll say.
It's baffling. It's such an odd choice. I mean, the weird thing is when you look at some of the choices that George Lucas and that were making when they were making these back in the early 80s, you sort of go, okay, that makes sense. I can see where you go. And you probably had some people around that were a bit more powerful, a bit more influential, probably a bit more sort of savvy in their creative powers. And that, that you can see him being restrained, especially around Empire. And again, some of the original parts of Jedi. But you're right. The moment he gets full sway over this, he just sort of, I don't know, it's like he pisses all over it. It's just sort of like, this is mine, that's mine, this is mine, I own all of this. It's just like he's marking his territory with terrible CGI. It's just crap. But yeah, it's such a baffling scene. Because again, tonally, it doesn't work. Because you're supposed to have this sort of like seedy, Jabba's palace is supposed to be sort of like, this seedy underworld. It's populated by some really dodgy characters. He's got Han Solo hanging up as a sort of, in the carbonite on the wall. And you just sort of go, oh, yeah, this is like a really dodgy place. And then they have this dance number and you're just like, oh, right, so that's what you wanted. That stops. And then it goes back to the original tone. And you get sort of, as you say, sort of like, Luke comes in and Leia comes in with Chewie and all this other stuff. It's just so badly, yeah.
I'll tell you what it is. It's like the equivalent of sat at the cinema enjoying the film a little bit, and then someone next to you just sneezes all over you, and you're like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like, after a couple of minutes, you get back in the film and you kind of forget it happened, but you're just like, did that person really have to look at me and sneeze on me? Couldn't they have just, got a fucking tissue? And that's how I felt when I watched it again. I was just like, I forget how, after, how much it annoyed me because of, I kind of forgot about how it even was changed. And as I said, like, I don't think I'd even seen the version of the original. So it kind of, before recording this, it kind of reignited this anger. And I was like, I always thought that bit didn't really fit in, but I just thought it's just part of the kooky bits of Star Wars. And then you watch the rebit and you go, oh, no, they had it fine as a kooky bit of Star Wars. That wasn't really necessary. And then he just went, nah, she's a bit more, doesn't it? Let's turn it up to 100. No one asked for that, George. No one wants a dance on with Jabba's palace before you watch some woman get eaten by a rancor. No one has ever said that.
You know what? Yeah, that's really good, actually, Mike. I think what I've got an issue with is when I watch the original trilogy, they seem like such an empty worlds. There's not a lot going on, and I know it sounds daft, but obviously where Luke comes from, and that it's like a desert place. We only see a small section of obviously a little village or whatever, and we've got the little place where his aunt and uncle live in, and I understand that, but I always felt watching it as a kid that the rebels were basically the sort of last people in the universe left. We did get mention of certain, towns and villages, and we get other things mentioned, but we don't see masses of people sticking up for or sticking up against the Empire. We just get the, like, sort of all this sort of foreshadow stuff, all this sort of behind the curtain. Oh yeah, nobody messes with the Empire. But I like that feeling as if, like, Han, Chewie, Leia, Luke, they're like the last people in the universe are going to lead this sort of band of rebels to actually get the Empire and take him down. And I think when he does in these fucking things, especially at the end, it just shows thousands and thousands of people. And I'm thinking, why the fuck weren't you fuckers fighting with him? It's like you've got about 25 ships there trying to take down this new super Death Star or whatever it is. And then you've got all these tossers who are in these all fake worlds. If you've got Jar Jar Binks at the end on top of a roof there, which I wasn't happy with straight away, when they're celebrating.
I want to keep my powder dry on Jar Jar, so let's not address that abomination.
But I just think, yes, fair enough. But I just think what you said about George Lucas is, I think, as you've mentioned, Dave, and we said it, he just had lightning in a bottle with this, because he just genuinely didn't know what he'd done with the way he created this world. Because once he tried to expand on it, for me, all he was trying to do here was shoehorn in these other places and cities that were all mentioned in the prequel, because for me, the way it all went was as if everyone got decimated in the original prequels, and this is what you were left with, this band of just sort of like a few thousand people who could fight, and there wasn't a lot of people in the unit. I know it sounds daft, but that's how I always felt. It always felt like it was a sort of exclusive club, and as you watch it, especially at the end, I was like, oh, this is fucking bullshit.
Well, do you know what? The ending, we will talk about, because there's other bits to talk about, but that ending, the celebratory ending, the original was, like you say, it was small, and it was a lot more compact, and it was never, I'll be honest with you, it was never great, because it was almost a bit, like, I think I always feel like it should have ended before then. It always felt a bit cheap and tacky. But with this one of the problems I have with this ending is, you get to see sort of like Tatooine, and you go, all right, that makes sense. It's an outer rim planet that's probably suffered at the hands of the Empire. And then you go to what I assume is Naboo, and then you go to all these other planets that live within the Empire. They all look pretty good to me. And all I can think is, you appear to have done quite well under the Empire.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why you're celebrating, because tomorrow morning, the government's collapsed with no replacement. You're fucked.
Let me just say, I mean, this is going to date this podcast potentially, but we've had one prime minister, we've had Theresa May, getting us through Brexit. We've now got Boris Johnson. He changed. Who was out dancing in the streets?
Yeah,
I tell you, fucking no one. Because no one cares.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's a big part in the books that I've been reading, the Aftermath trilogy I mentioned briefly before, set right after Return of the Jedi, and it's got some familiar faces like Wedge and things like that. And it talks about what people did, and a lot of the time people go to these planets and they go, well, the rebels, look what they did. Like, this planet was dying. It was on the edge of nothing. The Republic ignored us. The Empire came in. We had some valuable resources. They put us to work. They gave us this. They gave us that. They did all these things. Rebels come in, basically destroy a giant space station twice, kill millions upon millions of people, and now leave us with no government and trying to randomly scramble together because they think they know how to do it better. And it's like, to be fair, I mean, even though it's in the films, it's trying to, as we say, kind of show a bit more black and white sort of stuff, when you get to the nitty gritty of it, it is a bit like, as you guys say, like all these planets celebrating. I think it's one's Bespin, which kind of makes sense, and Tatooine maybe, but even though I think Tatooine's got a lot more control of the Hutts, really. You'd think Jabba the Hutt being killed probably makes a bit more of an impact on Tatooine than actually the Empire, considering obviously Darth Vader never even fucking goes to Tatooine, because if he did, he'd find his bloody son. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like the ending where it kind of intertwines them all. I've got written down here with the special edition was with Coruscant, Bespin, Tatooine, and then in 2004 they added in Naboo as well with everyone's favourite Gungan. I want to say my least favourite thing, and I don't know if I'm skipping a beat a little bit, but my least favourite edit, I think, even though there's that stupid singing bit, but obviously until basically today I didn't realise it was that. I didn't realise how bad it could have been. Now retroactively it's going to annoy me even more so that I knew it could have been. But the thing I actually dislike the most is the bit where Vader throws the Empire off and shouts no. Yeah, and that, I want to clarify. I want to clarify. Revenge of the Sith is my favorite Star Wars film. I think that and Empire for me are both equally good for different reasons, but I won't get into that quite yet. But what I found with it was that at the end of Revenge of the Sith, my least favorite part of probably the whole film was when Darth Vader comes out of his chair and goes, "No," because no one ever has said that in ever.
Yeah.
Like, if people tell their family the loved ones are going to die or have just died, they don't just go no for ages. That's not how humans or anyone communicates. So you get at the end of Empire, end of Return of the Jedi rather, and you get this bit where Darth Vader's conflicted and he's being torn apart by his master and mentor, but also torturer, and his son, who can break him free out of this and had the choice that he never had. And you see him trying to make his decision, and he silently picks up his old master, who's also been kind of his best friend for like 20 years, throws him off like a bridge thing while being electrocuted to save his son. It's a solemn, deep, and dark moment. And George Lucas, watching and creating that moment, looked at him and went, "You know what, make that better."
Yeah.
Having him yell no over it. And it's like, when has that ever helped anything?
I don't think the audience quite get it. So we need to tell them that Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, is conflicted at this point. So he has to yell no. I was so angry. I was filled with nerd rage at that point. Oh, God, that is the worst crime he committed in this trilogy.
Yes. It is, and I'll tell you what, sorry to jump across you guys, that's what I meant about the end of the film. Not all that bullshit fucking singing "Come by our bollocks." It was that no. As soon as that no come in, I was like, oh my God, I've never seen this version of it. What the fuck is this shit? Because I just thought, the fact that he doesn't say anything in the original one and just does the left to right, left to right, left to right, you're like, pick the fucking Emperor up, you bastard. Your son's going to die. And you'd be there for it. He always felt it went on a bit longer than it should have. But as soon as the no come in, I was like, oh, what the fuck is this shit? I just was totally deflated then. I just kept thinking, I just want to see the end of the movie. This is not the Star Wars I remember.
And that's the thing with me as well, is that like the weird thing is I'm absolutely adamant that happened in the 2004 edit. I'm pretty certain it was quite recently, because I remember specifically in my childhood a lot watching the original with that no noise bit and thinking how much of an impactful scene it is. And then as a teenager-ish, watching a version and not realizing, I think it was when I actually got Return of the Jedi on DVD, because I had it on video for ages, and then because Revenge of the Sith was the first DVD of the Star Wars films I got, I had all the other ones on VHS, and then so they were all the special edition versions, but not with the Vader shout. I think I'm pretty damn certain that's what it was. And then I remember a few years ago watching it and just being like, why would you? I can't. It's not even like one of those things where that stupid singing scene, you think, okay, maybe it's better quality, maybe the strings hanging on the weird dummy thing, maybe you thought it was a bit dated, you want to update it even though he did a bad job. But you go at the no bit and you're like, this added nothing. It just, there is a such thing which I think George Lucas fails at seeing sometimes, which is less can be more. And that's exactly what Scott mentions with the whole Tatooine thing being swarmed and crammed and stuff.
But the thing is you say it doesn't add anything. It's the opposite. It takes something away. Because I'll be honest with you, one of the things I have in this film is, like, at the end of Empire, we learned that there's that fantastic scene, that Luke and Vader have confronted each other, and you've now got this thing of sort of like, you now learn that Luke searching yourself, it's true, I am your father. And that's the reveal. One of the things you learn at the end of that film. So when you go into Jedi, you're like, oh my God, he's now going to confront this, Vader with the knowledge that he is his father. So you have that tension playing out throughout the film, and then it pays off. And to pay off in that silence, that decision is really impactful. Like, he chooses Luke.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, to have him go, no, it just makes him sound like a pussy. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know what to do. It really makes Vader less of a character. I totally agree. It's one of those odd choices where, again, like, someone needed to filter him and be like, George, leave it alone.
Can I just pick on one bit, because we're obviously, I know we're jumping around, but one of the bits, in what is in George Lucas's head is pure gold. But when he's allowed to take the steering wheel, it just turns into shit. So, or it can do if he's not filtered, as you say. For me, going back on this rewatch, I look back at it now and I think, you know what? When Luke first goes into Jabba's palace, he's dressed in black. We've known Luke in predominantly white, right? In the first two movies, he goes in, he's dressed in black, he uses the Force choke. As soon as he goes in, and you're sort of thinking, hang about this, this could be an interesting angle that they could play. Maybe the son does follow the father, and I think they could really have played on that. And I think potentially when we get to the new prequel, sorry, not the prequels, the post the 7, 8, and what could be in 9. Maybe that's what they're exploring. But I think here you see that Luke isn't whiter than white, and even in Empire, he's tempestuous, he's belligerent, he's not the holier than thou hero. And so I absolutely love Return of the Jedi, I've got to say. But I think that's more buried in nostalgia. I hear what everyone says that's negative about it. I hear that they say, you just wanted to put teddy bears in there and, sell toys and whatever. I get all that, but I still love the movie. But I kind of look at this could have been really great.
Well, I just want to say, I was going to add to that, Dave, because you mentioned that there's actually more than that, and there's a couple of scenes where they do keep hinting at the fact that Luke has got a darker side. So the first one is the fact that he chokes that. What do you call him? What's the guard called?
Gamorrean
guard. So he puts the Force choke on. Yeah. The second one is when they're on Jabba's barge thing, and they're escaping. Like Luke basically goes into what could be tantamount to a Jedi rage. Like he's just swinging that sword around and killing everything.
Yeah.
And he's about to kill someone, and he gets his hand. Someone shoots his hand, and he actually sees like the robotics. Do you know what I mean? Under his skin, and it's almost like that stops him. That sort of like gives him pause again. So it's like he keeps having something sort of like reminds him to pull him back, and he does it again. I think later on in the when he's on the Death Star towards the end, when it's the three of them stood there, the Emperor, Vader, and Luke. And the way that Hamill plays it, and he actually becomes a better actor throughout this trilogy. The way he's playing it, he everything that sort of like the energy and the like you said, that impetuous sort of like bitch boy that he is before is gone. Like he is playing it really somber and really down key, and you can feel that there's a tension and anger in him, and that's because the Emperor can feel it. And I can sense it, and I think he plays it really well in this film. That you do, as I've got older and watched it, I do see now that the first film's called A New Hope. Like Luke is that New Hope. He is supposed to be he is the thing that's come back. He is the return, and he becomes the Return of the Jedi. But he might not have been, and I think there's a real point in Return of the Jedi where it could have gone a different way. I mean, it could have gone the other way, that he killed the Emperor, and actually the new Sith Master and apprentice could have easily been Vader and Luke.
Well, it's quite interesting with two things, which first of all, I think Return of the Jedi was actually originally going to be called Revenge of the Jedi, and they changed it, which is a little tiny bit. But what's actually really interesting as well is one of my favourite things. I saw someone mention this online, so I didn't notice it myself, which was when Luke beats Vader, his whole sort of lightsaber style changes, okay, and it's more of it does much more aggressive. It does much more aggressively, and you actually notice that the only way Luke beats Vader is actually by channeling the dark side, which sounds odd, but when you watch it, he's like at one part, it's probably my favorite part almost of any Star Wars film, the whole thing. I've got a lot of favorite moments, but it's when I've always got it whenever I think of Return of the Jedi, I think how much I love it is that scene where he's flicking between Endor and the Death Star, and he's on there and he's fighting Vader, and then Vader says, "You've got a sister." And then Luke goes absolutely mental, and he goes at him. And at that point, there's a bit where Vader's on the floor holding, I think he's had one of his hands cut off, and he's not quite yet. He's just holding a lightsaber up with one hand, heavily breathing. And Luke's lifting his lightsaber and swinging it down like an axe. And he's going, and he's like basically like not quite screaming, but he's making a lot of noise while he's doing it. And that is a really dark-sidey Sith sort of thing. Someone's on the floor, barely being able to hold their arm up, and you're slapping down as hard as you can and slice his whole hand off. And that's when, as Scott kind of pointed to, he has that moment where he almost takes a breath and he has to throw his lightsaber away to the Emperor. He goes, "Look, I'm not my dad. I'm not gonna do this." And that whole thing all wraps up where it's like Vader sees exactly what Luke had the choice, and Vader thought he never had a choice, and that's what makes the whole thing happen, what makes it whole wrap up. And that's what I love so much about the ending, until add in the no, and it just takes away, just removes a chunk of beautiful art and how perfectly crafted it all is and how much thought went into everything. And then George Lucas, bloody 10 plus years later, went, nah, let's add a bit more.
Yeah, well, forget the no thing. Let's talk about the good in this bit.
Okay, sorry.
Let's talk about the good, because you're right. That bit where Luke is attacking him, one of my favourite bits in this, because I actually think Palpatine is a fantastic baddie. Like, he doesn't do a great deal, but that moment when he's going like nuts, you just hear that good, and it's like he's got such
something.
Dark side. Yeah. It is. It's like you say, when Luke is going mental, and you do get that thing of like he realizes that the Emperor's sort of like, you know, doing a Mr. Burns and steepling his fingers, and he's like, my new apprentice. It's that real again. Is that something that's pulling him back? Like, he could easily switch with the right, you know, thing. He could easily get pushed to the dark side. And I love the fact he keeps having to be pulled back or having to stop himself. Like, you know, he has to take that breath. And that's really interesting to me. And, you know, it's a shame like you said, they haven't really explored it in the sequels. But
do you not think they have? But the overall Star Wars fandom hasn't. So, you know, and again, not to blow my load too soon on it, but he is grey. Could you imagine the Dalai Lama, you know, going at Darth Vader like that? He wouldn't, would he?
Oh, no. Yeah, I don't think that Luke Skywalker at the end of Jedi is a true Jedi. I mean, you couldn't stand him next to like Qui-Gon Jinn or one of those, or you know, whatever. What's Samuel L. Jackson's called? One of those guys.
Mace Windu.
Like, those guys are like proper Jedi. Like, no, Luke is not that. Luke is.
I think one of the most confusing things, though, is that Yoda says, you know, you don't need any more training. You just need to beat Darth Vader, and then that's it. You're a Jedi. I think that, for me, confuses the whole thing, because I completely agree with you, Scott. He's not a Jedi.
No.
I've got some explanation here. Some good a little bit of explanation here.
Can I just say, before you go into the explanation, the Halloween costume you put on there was absolutely fantastic. So from Friday night dinner, and I think I'm just imagine him when you go into this explanation, you're in that particular costume.
Where did that come from? I mean, thank you. I mean, it's quite random. They came up an hour and a half conversation about Star Wars, and suddenly, by the way, I really like your Halloween costume. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Just wait, where you bring out the textbook and say, well, actually, you know, in chapter 16,
I could do it in the Jim voice if it makes it easier.
That would be great.
Actually, in Star Wars, you know that I was looking over it quite a lot, and
yep.
Oh, Wilson,
yeah,
that does it for me.
Sorry, Scott.
I was saying, this is the only podcast that comes with footnotes. What's the explanation then for
I'll try and be brief. Essentially, Jedi have to go through trials, and very briefly, prequel, original, sequel era. Okay, in the sequel era, it's a bit more grey because there's not as much balance. Blah blah. It's kind of like a bit more wishy-washy, up in the air, chaos sort of thing. The original trilogy is a bit more black and white, good and evil. It's very quite simple. And then the prequels are more so a bit more. Everything's actually okay, and it slowly falls into darkness because the Jedi are really arrogant, didn't really know a lot, and they basically arrogant saying Sith will never come back. The thing is, the prequels is that from that era and onward, what the Jedi used to do is Padawan would train for years and years and years and years, and then eventually, when he's ready enough, he would take the Jedi trials, and then eventually become a air quotes full Jedi. And then after that, you can raise to become a Jedi Knight, then a Jedi Master, then get a Padawan, etc. So in the Clone Wars era, they basically stopped doing Jedi trials because they were at a war. So they used to just get Padawans to just basically become generals and go off and fight wars, and then that would be enough for Jedi training. So then even further from that, basically Yoda says, he's already too old, he's already too this, he's already too that. There's not really an easy. You can't go to the Jedi Temple now and do the actual Jedi trials, which, one trial by combat, one trial by knowledge, one trial by wisdom, whatever, these sort of things. So instead, it's basically kind of like, this is your trial. If you do this trial, you stop being a Padawan and you become a Jedi. And that's kind of what it comes from. But I will clarify, this is retconning. This is me not conning, but retroactively putting pieces together, because once again, George Lucas, had a vague idea for things. But Yoda's character changes so much between the prequels and sequels, which I'm sure we'll get into in the next show. But part of that is because of having to, retroactively make his character grow in a sense, but also the whole thing that happened at the end of episode 3 changed who Yoda was, but Yoda, who he was in the originals, never references that. So you know what I mean? So it's a bit of a mess, but yeah, it's basically Jedi trial.
I'm going to give it a different version. I'm going to say that because obviously Yoda dies at that point. He sort of fades out and becomes a Force ghost later on. I think he's just knackered and wants him to fuck off. He's just like, yeah, you're a Jedi Knight. Go on. Piss off.
Leave me in peace.
Yeah.
I am sick of your shit.
Yeah. You freaking Skywalkers ruin everything.
You fucking come
Bugger
here.
off.
You think you've got all the answers? I've been here for 900 years.
There's a line there, isn't there? Obi-Wan, after Yoda dies, and Obi-Wan's talking to Luke, and he said, like, why didn't you tell me? And he gives him that sort of bullshit explanation as only a hologram can, that he essentially did kill Anakin, which is fucking nonsense. But it's when he says to him about Anakin, and he says, I when I met Anakin, he was already an accomplished star fucking fighter or whatever it is. I'm thinking, well, actually, no, he was about 8 years old in Phantom Menace. I'm pretty fucking sure that stupid pod racing, the thing that he did, that was about the only thing we knew about him. So I didn't buy that at all. I thought they obviously forgot about that when they were making the Phantom Menace, because he's just a fucking little kid, isn't he?
I don't think they forgot. I don't think they bloody cared. I honestly think we'll get onto it in the next episode, but I don't think they even watched the original trilogy when they made the prequels. I think they really forgot.
You're not wrong, actually, Scott.
But let's get to this. So let's move on to something I think we can all happily discuss, is the fight. We've talked about the sort of what goes on in the Death Star in that final third, but let's talk about what happens, everything else. Because one of the things that struck me this time is I enjoyed this. I really enjoyed Jedi this time. I found it a lot of fun, and we're ripping on a few things, but it's a lot of fun. I think that the ending of this film is way more exciting than the end of A New Hope, because it's sort of 3 levels. You've got the fight that's going on the Death Star between Luke and Vader. You have the sort of the stuff that's going on with this, almost like the dog fights in space and all that kind of stuff. And then you have the fighting on Endor. And the great thing you get on Endor, of course, is the Ewoks. So what are people's thoughts on the Ewoks?
I'm going to go last.
Okay, I'll go first then. I actually... Obviously, once again, when I watched them, I was younger, so I kind of warmed to them, essentially. But it sounds like they are a little bit annoying, and I find that when I watch Return of the Jedi now, out of the 3, I find New Hope's the slowest, Empire's probably the most consistent. I just enjoy it wholeheartedly throughout, and then I find that Return of the Jedi starts strongest, and then becomes kind of weaker in the middle, and then strengthens up again at the end. But the Ewoks, there's just some bits, especially when you rewatch it, where they're just in that little village, and C-3PO's doing the storytelling thing, and you're like, I do not give a fuck at all about any of this. Like, not to be like, I love Star Wars, but literally I'm just watching it. It's like, I came here to watch the finale between Darth Vader, one of the coolest, if not the coolest villain of all time. You find his puppet master on a giant space station that's even more scary than the last one, that can blow up a planet and all this stuff happening, and you're watching C-3PO blandly talk about storytelling with these weird effects put over it that I can't quite tell if they're meant to be inside him actually making the effects, or if it's meant to be we as listeners hear it. Do you know what I'm on about? The weird starfighter and all this stuff.
I think that's him generating the noise, I think.
Right, okay. Well, still, it annoyed me. And like, the Ewoks are cool, and I like the fact that the good guys, in air quotes, get with the native species. It's got this nice little thing, but it is a bit too much, ironically, Disney-ish, before they got bought out by Disney, but before it was even a thought. It is a bit too, everything's kind of happy, but I will say one of the most sobering moments is, and it makes me almost tear up every time I see it, which is when the whole battle's kind of going on, where the Ewoks are in full force, and you watch the Ewoks get murdered, and you watch 2 of them explode, or blow in the air and land. And then you watch one of them get up and grab the other one's hand and be like, come on. And then it doesn't move.
Horrible.
I was like, that moment absolutely kills me. So generally with Ewoks, I'm like, meh, they're kind of annoying, but I do quite like them, how they're fighting the Empire. So, and I saw them as I was a kid, so I'm kind of a balanced, I'm kind of a balanced view on the Ewoks, if I'm being honest.
Can I go next, guys?
Go for
it. I never questioned it. I had a couple of the figures when I was a kid. I think I had like a blue and white stripe one and that main little...
Wicket.
I used to watch the cartoon.
Wicket, that's the main one.
Wicket. The main, is that one with the brown one?
Yeah.
What's the brown one?
Yeah, played by Warwick Davis, yeah.
Yeah, Warwick Davis. Yeah, because I used to have...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I used to have him as a figure as well. So I had like a mishmash. I never had this complete collections, but I always had a mishmash of different figures. Now, never had a problem with him, but I must admit, watch it this time. And I don't know if it's the reviewing eyes or Chris being the, was it you put it, Scott? And it wasn't yourself, was it? This Jesse the Body bad guy of the podcast these days. Rick, sorry, Rick. Yes, it was Rick. I'm actually becoming the bad guy. But why did Han Solo and that offer themselves up so much when they probably had the shittest fucking weapons to threaten him with? They had the bluntest spears that they had in his face when C-3PO's there doing the whole magic thing with Luke, and they've got them upside down like they're about to turkey baste them and stuff and under a fire. I was just like, when I watch it now, I'm like, this is shit. But when they're fighting as well, some of their fighting's terrible. The fucking stormtroopers couldn't fucking... throw out a wank, couldn't they? They couldn't do anything. They can't fucking do anything. They're so fucking shit on that island. I'm sorry, on this planet. It's fucking rubbish, that end bit. But I agree. I know shit on it, and it's becoming my sort of a little thing now to be a bit controversial. But I love it. I love the end bit. I love the whole thing with Luke and the temptation of grabbing the lightsaber and what's going on Endor. And you've got obviously Han Solo's doing his bit. And again, the whole battle, you can forgive a load of the stuff that just is absolutely dated terribly now. I buy into it. I agree with you, Mike. That bit when he goes to pick him up and that, he's proper bad. That he's a proper lump in the throat job. You're like, oh, he's just killed him. Because you don't see that a lot, do you?
The
really?
music does it. When he reaches for him, the music just tells you what to feel.
Yeah, clever. The score's fantastic. I've got to say, across the whole 3 trilogies for me.
And
3 trilogies. It's getting late.
Well, 3 trilogies.
He's not wrong. You got the OG, you got the prequel, and you got the sequel. So here you go, Chris.
I think you're giving him a bit more credit there, Scott.
I have been up since 3 o'clock. Just give me a bit of slack.
We'll get on to the. I'll say more thoughts on that little moment. But to Dave, what are your thoughts on Wicket and his crew?
I mean, again, I hear what everyone says about, it's overly Disneyfied and they try and chuck in teddy bears. And, I can understand that if you were a slightly older than me and you'd been an adult, say, when you were watching the original first 2 Star Wars coming out, I can get why you would think that. But because my first experience was to go in there to the cinema and watch Return of the Jedi, I'm just forever going to be stamped with that particular view on the movie. I love this movie for all its faults. And I think with the people who say, it's just a bunch of teddy bears, these are cannibalistic, savage little bastards. So they are just about, it was a Jedi trick that basically conned them out of roasting our heroes that we watched for the first 2.5 movies, that conned them out of eating these guys alive. And at the end, and again, I'm sure we'll get to the music, because I remember the original upbeat kind of music, which was all yub-nub. They've roasted and eaten all these stormtroopers.
Yes, I was going to say that. Yeah. Yeah.
But so I don't have any problem at all with the Ewoks. Apart from, I don't think we're going to get to in this podcast, but the spin-off movies, Caravan of Courage, the Ewok Adventures, they were just horrendous. But I did really enjoy the cartoons that came out. And I was all about the Ewoks. I think they're great. And, Warwick Davis, what a great debut for him. And it was great. I think Mark Hamill, he got him all the previous movies and whatever, so they really took him under his wing. And so I just think it's great. The biggest problem I think I have in this midsection of Return of the Jedi is when Leia says, oh no, so Luke initially says, and my sister has it. And she says, I've known. I think I've always known. Well, really?
Yeah.
When you give him a big snog in Empire Strikes Back, did you know then? Because that, society-wise, we may look at that a bit differently.
It sort of that comes into the Jedi powers, like you say, are a little bit inconsistent in this film and or in all this original trilogy. So, yeah, her saying that later on when she says, I think I've always known. You do sort of think, ew. That's a little awkward. The only thing I was going to say about the Ewoks is I'm actually with you, Dave, on this. I actually really enjoyed, because it is a kids' film. Let's be honest. This is touting out to a kids' film,
yeah.
And they are a lot of fun. They're great characters. They're silly and they're clearly used for comedy effect. And the problem with them is they do take a little bit of menace away from the stormtroopers. Like, you can never really take a stormtrooper seriously if he can be outdone by a couple of, midgets in furry costumes. It's true. Because they never...
I'll just pause you there, because there's a few times on our podcast recently when Chris has said that, and I'm like, can we say that now? I'm not sure.
Little people, but it's true. Yeah.
Vertically challenged.
At the time of this film,
where we end up.
At the time of this film, that's what they were called. So maybe you can get away with it.
I'll get letters, I'm sure. But the problem is, it's not the fact of their height. It's the way it's filmed, and it's almost filmed sort of like for comedy effect. Like, they'll have them sort of like fall out of a tree or roll up against them and knock them over, and it's almost like.
Yeah.
And you're a bit like, oh, no, you're supposed to be a trained crack squad of soldiers. Why haven't you shot them? It sort of it does make me think that. But the other side of it is, when Luke and obviously that they sort of, what you said, they win him over by, he uses the Force power to raise up C-3PO, and then 3PO gives him the whole story about the trilogy. Basically, he gives him a bit of a recap, brings him up to speed. It's sort of like, okay, that's quite cute. But the realization I had this time is you've got this small band of rebels on the planet, and they are clearly thinking, oh, there's only a few of us. Do you know what we need? We need some cannon fodder. Let's use these small Ewoks that are clearly native here and just throw as many as we can at the stormtroopers to distract them whilst we break into the bunker. That's clearly what they are. They're there to be killed, nothing else. Those rebels, then.
It doesn't matter, especially in Return of the Jedi. It doesn't matter what the original plan was. Yeah. It always just works out. And if you think, if they didn't encounter the Ewoks, well, what was their plan then?
Yeah.
Get shot.
They'd have been stuffed, wouldn't they?
Exactly.
They were completely outgunned.
Well, it was a trap, wasn't it? It was a trap by the Emperor initially. That's why they knew about the plans, because that was his whole plan. So basically, the Emperor didn't count on savage teddy bears, and that's the downfall of the Empire.
Yeah, and I think, sorry, I keep laughing in the background, but what I'm laughing at, he said, midgets, Scott, is this is nothing to do with the Star Wars, but it just reminds me of I don't know if you can get away with this, but there's a bloke at work who's into midget porn. Every time I just think of him. There's a lad at work you should do dodgy DVDs, and he labelled it Man United's best goals, and his missus put it on and was like, oh, what's this United? Fuck off to do with Ewoks.
You never know. I'm pretty sure in one of those videos there's probably someone wearing a furry costume. Telling you.
Well, you never know. Warwick Davis might have done a turn in his time. I don't know.
Yeah, in the years between Jedi and Willow, it's
Sorry, I've just derailed.
Oh dear.
Oh,
And if you do want to hear more
Anyway.
highbrow humour, head over to the VHS Strikes Back.
Chris is always available with some fucking nonsense. But there you go.
let's bring it back on the rails. You're right. No, I do enjoy that. I think you cracked onto it, like you say. It's questionable in ways, but I actually really enjoy this whole third act. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a lot more exciting than I think A New Hope's final act is. Like you get what they call the land speeders and the ATSTs and the sort of all that stuff going on. And then you've got the sort of the battle in space, and you've got the stuff on the Death Star.
Yeah.
Like, I just think it's so well done, and I'm so invested by this point that I'm really hoping they win. I'm so backing the Rebels by this point. Yeah, I'd really enjoy this film. So let's I think we've talked about them all really now. So we sort of come up to let's sort of round it. I'll tell you what we're going to round it out with. Let's rank the original trilogy in order of your favourites. So New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. What's best to worst, I suppose. And I think we'll start with Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of spoiled this a little bit because I said my own
Yeah.
my best earlier on, so I was hoping you'd choose me first, and then I can leave. No, yeah, my favorite is I say Empire is my favorite, but I will say Return of the Jedi is very, very close. I mean, as I say, I think Empire for me is throughout is like 8 out of 10, like consistently just always really, really interesting, and even the bits in Dagobah, which I found really interesting, mixed with the Cloud City stuff, that's really cool. I found that Return of the Jedi, the start is like an 8 or a 9. I just find that the middle for me, when before things kind of get going on Endor, when it's kind of they're still kind of pottering around, or when you first meet Wicket and stuff, it's plot wise it's fine, but I think unfortunately I'm kind of looking at this a lens. I think you guys probably are a bit as well. Is the rewatch lens, where it's like we've all seen these films, especially I know I have so many times that you're watching it again, you still love it, but it's like for me now the middle section of it is a bit of Return of the Jedi, but then the end, as you say, with all the battle and everything that's going on, and I think the scene with the end, very, very end, just in the throne room of the Death Star, is absolutely phenomenal end to a trilogy, and I think it is an incredible film. But I just think A New Hope is not as good as the other two. I think it changed cinema probably more, but as an objective film, I think New Hope is cool, and the universe is really good, and it feels good while you're watching it, and it's cool, a thrill ride. But I think New Hope, is just a bit flat, I'd say, compared to the other ones in a sense. I mean, the Death Star run's probably kind of the big finish, but that is nothing in comparison to sort of the emotion thrill of Empire or the conclusion of Return of the Jedi. So I'd say for me, it's Empire, very closely behind is Return of the Jedi, and then substantially lower is New Hope.
Cool. Okay, Chris, what are your thoughts then? What's your order?
I'm glad you've came to me because I've literally just got my composure back. I've had to turn the mic off laughing. My not very funny midget joke. I'm so sorry. I've been in stitches, Mike. It wasn't at you. I promise you, but I was fucking crying here. Sorry, it just amused me. Fucking derailed the Star Wars podcast talk about midget porn. But anyway, right. So, I know I've revealed my hand before. Hold on.
The suspense is killing me.
Yeah.
I'm laughing. I can't say.
Jeez.
Will you turn off the midget porn before you give your final review?
Sorry.
Do it in the background.
Do you want to do it in Morse code? Will that be help?
I'll text you, Scott. Right. So, my favourite is Return of the Jedi, without a doubt. I don't make any. I don't hide that at all. I think probably I watched that more than A New Hope. Then it is A New Hope, and then it's Empire. But I do think this time of watching Empire, I can appreciate for what it is. I was watching reading some of the comments on like YouTube and on some of the forums, Reddit, before we did this, and everybody is just saying Empire is the masterpiece. It's that, and I get like what you'd said, Mike, as well regarding. I like Revenge of the Sith as well. I think it's a great film, and I think it's one of them things now. Maybe I'll appreciate it more. Maybe I just need to get over my thing that the Empire actually won that film. You know, even though they didn't win the actual battle, they they won the battle, they didn't win the war. But you know, that's my sort of in order. With the prequels, I haven't got a clue again until I watch them properly. I think we will go into that obviously when we get into our next episode.
Yeah. Okay, Dave, what about yourself?
Well, I feel, you know, like we're going to cover all bases here. I think I mentioned on our review for the last podcast, I think I'm tainted by the order that I watched these in, because I watched the original Star Wars, which became A New Hope, over and over, you know, so many times. And then I saw Return of the Jedi, and I saw it at the cinema, and then as soon as it was available on the video, I watched it over and over again. And it was only later that I was able to piece together the story and watch Empire. I think in the years since, I've come to appreciate Empire, but it's like kind of appreciating fine art for me. I can kind of see what all the good things people say about it, but I don't love it. And I think New Hope and Jedi I genuinely love. And there's just nothing, you know, we haven't spoken about that much the music. And I think the fact that every scene, John Williams is telling you, this is what you should feel in this scene. We spoke about a little bit, you know, when the little Ewok dies, and the music goes from all this upbeat, you know, the Ewoks, these cheeky little teddy bears are sticking it to the Empire, and it's all going great. And then suddenly, you know, you see the bad side to war. You know, there is death, and the music just tells you exactly what to feel, and I just feel that a lot more in A New Hope and Jedi. And I think, again, I know a lot of people hate Jedi because of the way it becomes more kiddish, but I think if you go into that, you know what? This year I watched Toy Story 4. Absolutely loved it. Not because I thought I was going in to watch something like The Joker. You know, I wasn't going in to watch something really serious and have it question my outlook on the world. It's because I go in to watch a kid's movie. And so for me, that is what I go into watching The Return of the Jedi. But for me, I'm probably in the minority, and that is because my age dates me. But for me, it's the original Star Wars, then it's Return of the Jedi, then it's Empire Strikes Back.
Good stuff. I think, yeah, no, I'm glad we're getting that. I'm glad we're getting some combination. It goes to show, I think, something in particular that we may have ripped on these films, and you know, we really have sort of picked fault with some of them. But we all love this trilogy. Like, we all love the Star Wars world and the Star Wars universe. And I just want to say a sort of, like, you know, second what you're saying about the music. I think I've got the score for each of these films, you know, on CD, and I listen to it. I listen to them often. I think John Williams is one of those composers that sort of like his music. Basically, is the music of my childhood. As you said, sort of the Superman score, the Indiana Jones March, and Star Wars. Like those things, just resonate with me, and they're so good throughout this trilogy. But for me, I think, you know, I used to, and for a long time, I used to say the standard thing. It was Empire, New Hope, then Jedi sort of thing. Going back and watching them now, Empire still stands out head and shoulders for me. I think it's the most well made of the three. I love the sort of the tonal shift as it sort of, you know, that thing of the rug pull as you start to become less and less confident about their success. And then the sort of, you know, the fact it ends on a cliffhanger, and as Chris sort of said, the baddies sort of win. I love all that. I think I can go back and watch that film again and again. So it sort of became between A New Hope and Jedi this time. But really getting into New Hope this time, I couldn't help but feel the flaws in it more than ever before. And that's not to say it's a bad film. That's not to say it doesn't still echo that you know what I love about this whole trilogy. And it's a pulp film. It's an adventure film for kids. It's, you know, that's what it is. It's a fantasy sci-fi film, but it's so much. There's so many flaws and stuff in it now that I can't look past. that although I still enjoy it as a movie, I find that Jedi is better made. It's got a more satisfying third act, and I think the cast are more comfortable in their roles, so they're just better throughout. So for me, it's Empire, closely followed by Jedi, and A New Hope actually has probably fallen in my estimations in this watch. And if I was to do well, we will, when we do a categorization of all of them, I actually think A New Hope has probably fallen a notch or two overall.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree, and that's one of the things I think I said in the VHS one, which was now trying to show people, like when I have kids and I want to show them Star Wars, and they'll probably hate it. It's where do you start now, in a sense, because I do think objectively, A New Hope is better than Phantom Menace. I'm not. That's not a discussion I think anyone should really. That's definitely New Hope is better. Yep. But the problem is with the newer generation, is it that the boring and flawed start and majority of it, Phantom Menace, compared to the end of it, I still believe, I'm not getting into a huge prequel discussion, but like the end of Phantom Menace, I think for me is actually more enjoyable than the end of New Hope, because of now there's so many things that have tried to basically either parody or do versions of the Death Star run. They're so iconic, whereas the fighting in the end of, like, you know, Phantom Menace is so, it's basically just, I like lightsabers. I just think the choreography is really cool. So it's like it's a hard one now of like New Hope, just compared to the other ones. I wouldn't have a problem showing anyone Empire, Return of the Jedi even at all, but showing a young person, especially now, A New Hope, you really feel, as you say, Scott, that sort of almost a clunkiness in a sense, where there's obviously it's very old and dated, and also they've re-edited it about 1 million times, but also they've done loads of bad clunky re-edits, but also Alec Guinness didn't really want to be in it, but also there's this, all these little pieces that when you watch the film, when you love it, you don't really, it doesn't bother you as much. But trying to be objective when you watch it compared to the other two, I would be inclined to agree and just say, I obviously I was already said my opinion, but don't think it holds up.
As the older statesman of the group, I feel like I have to defend A New Hope, and I have to just put it into the context of movies that came out. So if we look at other movies that came out that year, we had a Saturday Night Fever. One of Chris's favourites, Smokey and the Bandit. Now, to be fair...
No, Chris's favourite, David.
It is a, unique movie. We'll get onto that when I'm sure we get to the VHS Strikes Back and what you think and what I think. But, that's grounded, isn't it? That's on Earth. We have The Hills Have Eyes. This was such a groundbreaking movie. Of course it wasn't. It doesn't stand up to what we know now. We're over 40 years beyond when this was made. We're nearly half a century beyond when it was made. But this was such a groundbreaking movie. I think for that, you've got to kind of look at it on a curve.
Oh, no, I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, I give it respect.
I see what you're saying. And the thing is, I'm just checking something here, but I can see what you're saying. So you have got that thing of I want to know it's groundbreaking, and the reason that this is such a defining film is because it took so many opportunities and sort of went so far. And as they set it in space, it's a sci-fi fantasy film, and it was so different. However, what I would also say is, as you said, you've got other films this time. You've got Close Encounters, Suspiria came out the same year. All right, Smokey and the Bandit.
We heard that. We heard that. The way you said Smokey and the Bandit. I haven't even seen
Scott,
the film.
You can come on to our review of that one for sure.
One of my favourites, Clint Eastwood, The Gauntlet. You've got these films in there, and to be fair, I may have said it, in that way about Smokey and the Bandit, but I will say it's a film I haven't seen for years. But my point being, yes, it's different, and yes, it took chances and it pushed boundaries within the sci-fi realm and in the fantasy realm, but that is not an excuse for some of just the piss poor storytelling that I think appears in A New Hope. I think, yes, the ideas are there, but I still, this time, I just struggle to forgive some of the things that could have so easily been ironed out with a more competent screenplay. I think that's where I stand. I think that's sort of. I'm really going to get some angry tweets about this. I really am.
I don't think with a modern lens, I don't think you are. I think the film is flawed, absolutely. But it absolutely did break the mold for me. So that's why I'm gonna stamp my my New Hope flag right down, and my kids will agree with you.
Yeah.
My kids will more than they constantly tell me how shit New Hope is, but that doesn't ebb away at my enjoyment of it.
Well, I think this episode. I think we've got a great. I think this and the previous episode, where we really got into the original trilogy. I think we've had some fantastic sort of varying opinions on this. I'm not so sure that our opinions will vary so much when it comes to the prequel trilogy in the next episode. I think we shall see how that goes.
We will see. I think I like the prequels a lot more than you guys realise.
I think you're right.
I want to. We will definitely argue. I'm not. As a little sneak peek, I genuinely Attack of the Clones was my childhood. I had that on VHS. I used to rewatch that, and I want to say there are a lot of parts of that film that I used to fast forward. Even though it was like my favourite film for a long time. Yeah, that's my little sneak.
Well, I'll give you a sneak
peek.
peek. I watched Phantom Menace last night whilst I was doing some bits and pieces, and the moment I wasn't paying full attention at one point, and all I heard was "Yippee!" and I was just like, "Oh God,
wizard,
wizard, Jesus,
wizard."
So yeah, we'll get into that in the next episode. So as you know, so in part 3 of this epic saga of podcasts. In the next episode, we will be discussing the prequel films, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. So, guys, I'm just going to give you one last chance to plug your wares. So, Mike, give us another sort of, where can we find anything and everything about Genuine Chit Chat?
Okay, I'll keep this brief, unlike everything else I've ever said. It's on Spotify, all the usual Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all the usual podcast places. It's on YouTube. No one listens to it on YouTube at all. So just to clarify, it's got like no views on YouTube. That doesn't reflect the show. Any sponsors listening? But genuinely, you can find it on any of the usual places. I've done a podcast with Chris and Dave. I think that was number 63. There's a huge back catalogue, and also if you want a place to start, you can either contact me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as @Genuine Chit Chat, or on YouTube. I have put the episodes into sort of a genre playlist. So if you want more lighthearted stuff, if you want more sciencey stuff, if you want more stuff about religion, I've got them all into different genres. So it's Genuine Chit Chat, and yeah, go find it if you want to listen to honest conversations with interesting people, because that's the tagline.
Excellent, fantastic. Chris, what can you tell us about VHS Strikes Back?
Well, we are available on all podcast catchers. So if you want to get over there, guys, and you want to listen to myself and Dave basically review anything from the VHS era, some absolute legendary classics, as I mentioned at the top of the show, and some not so classics. But we usually have a lot of fun either way. So get over there, guys, and give us a listen.
Excellent. And Dave, tell us about Comics in Motion.
Yeah, so we look at all things that are based on comic-based media. So I've had a few glasses of wine, to be honest. So we look at all things based on comic books. So we look at movies and TV shows, and we go into the history of kind of where the comic books came from, and also we go into the movie or TV background as well. Chris and I have a lot of fun doing it.
Excellent. Well, guys, this one has been an absolute blast, and I'm really looking forward to getting into the prequel trilogy next time. So thank you very much, guys, and we'll talk soon. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, another great 20th Century Geek episode. Thank you for listening. If you would like to get in contact to suggest topics for future shows, or just chat about everything nerdy, you can email me at 20thcenturygeek@gmail.com. That's 20thcenturygeek@gmail.com. Or find me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Just search for 20th Century Geek. If you would like to support the show, please go on your podcast catcher and leave a 5-star review. I would greatly appreciate it. It raises the show in the ranks and lets more people know about the podcast. If you want to show more support for the podcast, we do have an Amazon wish list. Just go on Amazon and search for 20th Century Geek, and you will find a list of books that will help with research for future podcasts. And don't forget, we love second-hand books in 20th Century Towers. Once again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.